Wow, it is time for the pre-show already. All right, we're 10 minutes away from our what are we doing today? We're doing Security Plus from our SY0-601 Security Plus study group. I have so much A plus on my brain today that I don't know whether I'm coming or going. I don't know whether I'm in the right place or not. I think I am. Today is definitely Security Plus study group. I've got all new questions. I've been spending... usually I get these done the weekend before. I got these questions done yesterday, so they are fresh. They are delivered fresh from our factory, from our bakery to you. Hey, chat room. Hey, everybody. Oh, I can't hear myself. Let's turn up the headphones. That's so much better. Hello, Vancouver, Canada. Haven't been out the West Coast in a while. I got kinfolk in Vancouver area. They're in... just outside in the burbs of Vancouver. So it's good to have you here. Had other family in Canada, in Hamilton on the other side of the country. They sent a note yesterday. We were texting and it was snowing there. I'm in Florida, so it's 80 degrees today. So I'm not familiar. So it's still cold elsewhere. We're still working through it. Hello, Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, South Carolina. Hey, St. Vincent. Good to see you again, Malk. Thanks for being here. Hey, Romania and Lake Worth Beach, Florida, down in South Florida. Good to have you here. Hey, Brooklyn. Washington, D.C. is here. Louisiana, Romania. We got lots of folks checking in. Let's check in ourselves. Do we have our Cylons going? That means we're recording this. It's also being recorded on the YouTube. This is the Blackmagic 4K web streamer thing. Someone sent me a note earlier in the week saying that's not OBS. It is not. It's a purpose-built appliance. I don't know that you can even see it. Let me turn some light on down here. It's this one right here. And see this? It's actually in a rack. It's in a 19-inch rack, but it's this thing right in the middle. It's just this tiny little box. That's what's doing the streaming. So that's what that is. For people asking. Hey, if you're near Miami, can I pay you for an in-person session? I am 8 hours away. I'm in Tallahassee. So not Miami. Used to live in Miami. Used to live in Hialeah and Miami Lakes and Pembroke Pines and Miramar. Lived in 4 places in 10 years when I was in South Florida. But not down there anymore. And I don't have in-person anyway. Everything's just online. Well, you got me in person right now. You can always ask questions in the after show, which is why we have the after show. The rest of the time I'm in here shooting videos. So unfortunately, I just don't have enough time to do anything like that. We got a lot going on today. It's all Security Plus all the time. Security Plus. The only thing that's been like really solid in my life right now, Security Plus. Not in my life, but in my professional life, because we have the new A plus that has just come out today, or the new exam has just become available. We've had new A plus products out for a while now. But we're making new videos and we're posting them on YouTube. It's an exciting time to get all of this going. And so I've got A plus just sort of stuck in my noggin. And it's nice to break out of that and do some Security Plus today. This should be good. Hello, North Florida and Cuba and Dubai and Saudi Arabia and the Dominican Republic and North Virginia. And Ireland is here. Houston, Texas. Baston's here. Huntsville, Alabama is here. We're all checking in today. We're all New Hampshire is here. Chicago, good to have you here. Ann Arbor, Michigan, checking in. More Chicago and North Carolina and the Netherlands and India and Grenada and Baltimore. Wow. Folks are really all over the place in Mexico and Trinidad and downtown Houston and Brownsville and Denver and more Houston and Aurora, and I can't even keep up now. It's just going too fast. Germany is here. We've got about 5 minutes before we get going. There's our clock, top of the hours when we get started. This is not the show. This is not the study group. Well, it is, but we haven't started yet. Seeing the back of my head and my somewhat iron shirt, it looks better from the front. Looks a little bit better from the front than it does the back. This is just sort of a way. So you're seeing what I'm saying. This is sort of the thing. It's always here. It's always set up. It's always ready to go. Very first thing. Hey, Mike in the chat room with the $5 super chat. First super chat of the day. Thank you, Mike. Mike says, passed my Security Plus on Sunday. Congratulations on your new Security Plus certification. Mike says, my first IT cert. Wow, that's a good one to start with. Thanks for all your content. Your exams and notes were a huge help. The exams were very close to the real thing. They are, of course, all of the questions. Do I even have my questions? I don't even have them in here. I've got to get my my books out so I can show them to you. Hold on a second, everybody. I knew there was something, right? Okay. What do we got? What is in here? We got plenty of course notes. Where is the Security Plus? There it is. It's red. 601. And practice exams. And success bundle. Okay. Those all came out of these cabinets over here. A real background, by the way. Okay. Now we've got them. Now I can plug back in. There we go. Trying to get all of these things in order. I should have a checklist. I don't know why I haven't done that yet. It really isn't a green screen. Or maybe it is, and it's all well coordinated that when I walk up there, it all pretends that I'm touching it. Maybe it's even integrated into some type of front end. But anyway, Mike, thank you for the $5 super chat. Mike mentioned that the questions were close to the real thing. But of course, I wrote all of these questions. They're all original questions, but they are written in the same style. We'll talk more about that in the study group. Where can I get the questions for this live stream? Well, you're going to get them in just a moment. I'll tell them to you in about 3 minutes, 2 minutes now. I need some air conditioning, though, because it's warm out here. AC's not even on. Let's make it cooler, and let's put it right there. Did I do it? Is it working? It is. Yeah, what if I'm completely virtual? What if none of this is real? That would be a little plot twist, wouldn't it? I think Bradford may be onto me. It might be that way. Let's get this thing almost ready to go. What kind of remote is that? What do you mean remote? Which remote? I don't know. I don't know to which remote you are referring. So I'm not sure. We'll figure it out. I could be. The whole thing just could be. Oh, the AC. It was just Nest. It's my phone. It's my mobile phone. So that's what that was. And I was just plugging in Nest to turn it on. And actually, it's not even. I'm thinking it's warmer than it actually is in here, but it's not yet. But as soon as it is. How many CEUs are my study sessions? Today's CEU will be good for 1 hour of a webinar category CEU. If that helps. Yeah, it's not a side cam. Oh, well, no, it's not this is just my phone. Everything happens in the phone. Everything begins and ends right there. So there it is. That's the phone. Cancel this. So that's, I've got a lot going on here. There's way too much going on here. So that's my phone apps. So that's my Nest and my security camera and my Ring and my garage door. All these Internet of Things are all in here. It's rather ridiculous. My alarm system. What else is in here? There's way too much automation. Every time I get something new and it says connect to the internet, I think maybe we shouldn't connect to the internet. Maybe, is it necessary that my washing machine be connected to the internet? I'm not so sure. I think it's just a jumping off point. Time to go It's 12 noon. Look at that. Let's do keynote. Let's look for a green light on the keynote, which should be right. There it is. And hey, we're working. We're ready to go. Let's do a study group, everybody. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the April 2022 Professor Messer SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. It's our monthly Security Plus study group. All the Q&A that comes directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. I've got all new questions for you this month. We're going to step through them one by one and see how much you know about Security Plus and how well you remember everything from the exam objectives. If you're just getting started with your studies, you can still follow along. You're certainly going to learn something in this first hour. And in the second hour, I will open up the phone lines and we will take questions. Well, not phone lines, but the chat lines. I'll take questions from the chat. We'll do it that way so that you have access and be able to ask really whatever you would like. Will I answer anything? No, I will not. But I will take your questions in the chat in that second hour. If you are here live and you would like to participate live and answer questions online live, then all you have to do is pop open a new browser window and browse to professormesser.com/QA. professormesser.com/QA. There's a question waiting for you right now if you do that. Now, there is also an app that you can get for this because, of course, there is. Go to your favorite app store and download the Socrative Student app. That's the one you want. In the Socrative Student app, it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. There's no cost for the app. There's no cost to do this. It's absolutely free. The app is one that you can add to your phone, completely free. Just another way to access and answer questions in the study group. So let's talk about the questions you're going to see. We'll start with one from last month to see how well you can get in and answer these questions in the chat room. This is from our Socrative links. Go to professormesser.com/QA. There's a link at your bottom. The question asks, a security administrator needs to capture packets to a file for additional processing. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Is it grep, TCP dump, the harvester, Nessus, or nmap? A security administrator needs to capture network packets to a file for additional processing. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Would it be grep, TCP dump, the harvester, Nessus, and nmap? If you think you know the answer, please visit the link on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll come back to this question in just a moment and see how you answered. Thanks for being here in the study group. We're, of course, so glad to do these study groups. It's always a good time, and we always have some interesting questions and answers, and the chat room always brings up interesting things. We are able to do this thanks to your support. Of course, all of our videos are available to watch for free on YouTube. By support, I mean you're subscribing to our YouTube channel, of course. Go to professormesser.com/YouTube, subscribe, hit the button, do all those normal bell button things. Whatever the kids say to do, smash the button, do that. Do exactly what they just told you to do. Also, on Twitter and Instagram, we have a weekly Security Plus pop quiz question. Go to professormesser.com/Twitter or professormesser.com/Instagram, which is the same question on both of those, but Instagram has a pretty picture with it because that's what you do on Instagram. There's also hashtags on all of those. You can easily search through and find questions that occurred in the past. We've got a SY0-601 is our current version of the Security Plus certification. It's a version that came out on November the 12th of 2020. That means with the normal 3.5-year retirement for these certifications, the estimated retirement date will be somewhere around May of 2024. We really won't know the exact date until we get closer to that. But as we sit here in April of 2022, that's so far away, it's not even a concern. If you're studying for your SY0-601 certification, keep studying for that Security Plus certification. You're doing the right thing. You're in the right place. You're studying the right materials. You don't have to worry about anything changing until May of 2024. To earn your Security Plus certification, it's a single exam, 90 minutes long with a maximum of 90 questions. It is graded on a scale of 100 to 900, which is kind of weird. And you have to earn a 750. CompTIA does not share how they come up with these scores. So it's nice to have that just as something you can see, but we aren't quite sure exactly what's going on with that, with those numbers. You just have to do the best you can and hope it comes up to 750. The exam itself consists of two types of questions. There are multiple choice-based questions and performance-based questions. We'll do both of those today. You'll get to see a difference between all of them. Of course, all of my Security Plus videos are available for you to watch for free online. Simply go to YouTube, to my ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube, or YouTube/ProfessorMesser.com. Or what is my channel name? I can't even remember things. YouTube.com/Professor Messer. I think that gets you there too. The easiest way is to go to ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. There's some Security Plus videos there that you just watch for free, and they're all there. There's nothing behind the paywall. There's nothing that is only limited amount for free. Everything is for free. Everything is out there and ready to watch the entire course, every minute of every video. There are some folks that would like an offline version of this, and I have one on ProfessorMesser.com/601SB. This is my success bundle, and it has offline versions of the videos, MP3 audio files, practice exams, course notes, USB drive that everything ships with. If you get the physical version, it's all available to you on the website. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/601SB, and you have the choice between digital and physical editions. Go have a look at that. There's also questions available on my site, ProfessorMesser.com/Take10. That's my Take 10 challenge. You can find some good Q&A there to help you with your 601 studies. We've also got a video replay of this study group available immediately afterwards on YouTube. There's also an audio version of this as a replay that I publish in podcast format. So go to your favorite podcast listening site or use your favorite podcast listening app, and you can subscribe to that podcast at ProfessorMesser.com/podcast. It's a great place to go if you want to get that audio only that you can take with you. We also have these study groups on YouTube with timestamps. Just come back tomorrow. It takes us about a day. My marketing manager, Lori, listens to everything we have out on this study group, and she puts timestamps in of everything. So go to ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube. You can see all of the videos, and don't forget about the timestamps in the video description. Lori's watching this on the replay right now. Everybody say hi to Lori. She is putting in those timestamps and probably listening to this at 2x speed or 3x or whatever it takes to be able to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. Thank you, Lori. We also have a 24/7 chat. When we're not here doing a live stream, we're in our Discord channel. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/Discord or follow the links on the website for chat, and you can absolutely join us, ask questions, send me a direct message, whatever you would like. There's always somebody in the chat room who's willing to help. So have a look out there at ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. Also let you know that on my website, of course, I have all of the courses that you can take. Eventually, you're going to need to take the exam, but do not pay full price for your voucher. There are discounted vouchers available on ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers, and they're already discounted. You don't need a discount code. You don't need a coupon code. You don't have to use some type of plug-in in your browser to find a code because there's no codes. They are simply discounted. Everybody has access to this all the time. And you go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers to purchase your voucher. And if you purchase your voucher on ProfessorMesser.com, I add in a little bit extra. You can get my Exam Hacks ebook for free if you purchase the voucher on my site. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. You can download that Exam Hacks immediately after purchase, and I usually get these vouchers to you in about half a day. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But I tell you on the website, it can take as much as 24 hours. Usually it takes a lot less than that. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers. Let's now look at that question we asked earlier, which was, a security administrator needs to capture network packets to a file for additional processing. Which of the following would be the best choice for this task? Is it grep, TCP dump, the harvester, Nessus, or Nmap? And let's see how you answered. You may have remembered this from last month. This was a question that we did last month. And I think if you are someone who is working towards understanding more about what's happening over the network, this is definitely a utility you need to learn how to use, which is TCP dump. Both TCP dump and Wireshark are great hand-in-hand packet capture, packet analysis tools. And if you need to grab the packets from the network, TCP dump is the best way to do it. Capturing packets to a file is so simple with TCP dump, puts everything in there. Very simple to have that there. Now, Nmap is great for finding open ports. There are some limited packet capabilities within Nmap, but it's certainly not designed to do heavy-duty packet capture, certainly not packet capture to a file. Same thing for Nessus, which is primarily a vulnerability scanner. There is some packet capture capability in Nessus so that you can see the results of a vulnerability scan, but it's not designed to do ongoing capturing of network packets to a file. Same thing for the Harvester, which is designed to give you open source intelligence, OSINT, but it doesn't provide any packet capture. And grep is a search utility. That means the only option here, the best option, the one you should have chosen, the one that most of you did, was TCP dump. Answer B, TCP dump is the best choice. Of everything provided, of the following, that is the best choice for this task. It is TCP dump. So you already knew that, maybe most of you did. And of course, we had this question last month. So you can, of course, think about what we were talking about last month. Maybe you remembered from being there. TCP dump is a great utility to use. That's what it looks like. It's not very graphical. That's why Wireshark tends to be one that a lot of people use. But this is an extremely useful utility. And when all you have is the command line, this is a lifesaver. Make sure you're familiar with it. TCP dump. Now, that is a multiple choice-based question because you had a question and multiple answers to choose from. But of course, the first handful of questions you get on your exam are not going to be multiple choice. They will be performance-based questions, which in the world of CompTIA just means it's anything but multiple choice. It could be a fill in the blank. It could be CompTIA asking you to perform a particular function at the command line. Maybe they put you into a operating system and have you perform a function. Maybe it's a drag and drop question. Maybe you're putting things in a particular order. Maybe it's matching. Who knows what it is, but it's anything but multiple choice. Fortunately, the content from a performance-based question all comes from the exam objectives. So it's really just a different way to ask questions about information you already know. So don't be worried about performance-based questions. They are relatively straightforward. Hopefully, this is one that is relatively straightforward for you. We have a matching question for you today, and this question asks, match the technology. I have 4 different descriptions here, and I want you to match the technology on the right side. You'll notice that there are more technologies listed than there are descriptions, and that's on purpose because I want you to find the right 4 out of the 7. So for those of you listening on the podcast side, let me spell these out for you. The number 1 is confirm the hardware on a remote device. Description number 2 is a document is hidden within an image file. Number 3 is passwords are securely stored in a database. And the last one is an alert shows Windows malware running on a Linux server. Now, I have 7 different technologies here. Only 4 of them will be used. Of these 7, we have elasticity, tokenization, hashing, false positive, federation, obfuscation, and attestation. There's a lot going on here with pronunciation that I have to keep up with. Hopefully, it's something that you're already familiar with. Let's go through them one more time. This is a matching question. The 4 descriptions are, number 1, confirm the hardware on a remote device. Number 2, a document is hidden within an image file. Number 3, passwords are securely stored in a database. And number 4, an alert shows Windows malware running on a Linux server. The 7 different technologies are elasticity, tokenization, hashing, false positive, federation, obfuscation, and attestation. Hopefully, I enunciated all of the Asians for you. All of those. I was going to say cations, but it's not. There are stations, cations, and rations. And zations. There's a lot going on there. See if you can match those up. Now, if you are online, you notice it's a fill in the blank. So if you already think they're in order, you can simply say 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, and you're done. All finished. Wasn't that easy? That's not the answer. They are not in that order. You're going to have to go through and figure out what these happen to be. Lock in your answer with that link that's at the bottom of the screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. While we're doing that, let me rewind a little bit. First, Eric with the $20 super chat. Thank you, Eric. Eric says, thank you, Professor, for all you do. I thank you right back. Thanks for that $20 super chat and for your support for everything that we're doing here. I often say that this crazy experiment that sort of escaped the lab still requires an electricity bill because there are lights on me. So that $20 goes a long way towards that. And of course, it keeps everything here running smoothly. Thank you, Eric, for that very kind donation. And also in the chat room, James with the $25 super chat. James says, thank you for educating me so effectively. Well, I'm glad it's working out. I'm glad we're doing a good job with that. We spend a lot of time on our study materials and making the highest possible quality. So we're very glad when it all works out. So James, thank you for also a very generous $25 super chat donation as well. We sure appreciate it. And thanks for being here. Let's see how you did with this question, which was match the technology, the 4 descriptions of confirm the hardware on a remote device, a document is hidden within an image file, passwords are securely stored in a database, and an alert shows Windows malware running on a Linux server. Which of these is elasticity, tokenization, hashing, false positive, federation, obfuscation, and attestation? Let's see how we do. We're going to take this one at a time. Let's clear the slate. And we'll start with confirming the hardware on a remote device. Of those 7 different technologies, I would say that has to be attestation. And if you break the word out, it is attesting that what happens to be on that system is this particular list. It is a very good way, especially when someone's logging in. You may want to check and make sure they're logging in from a trusted computer, one that you have set up, this is the only computer that's allowed to connect to your VPN, or one of the ones that are allowed to connect to your VPNs, and you want to verify that nothing on that machine has changed. You want to get a report that attests that this device is exactly the one you were expecting. That is called attestation. And if you want to confirm that hardware on a remote device, there's an entire very secure process that goes through the inventory of the hardware and software, the packaging of that information, and then sending it to you so you can see what that is. Attestation, answer G, is confirming the hardware on a remote device. Second on our list is a document is hidden within an image file. I'll bet a number of you got this one right. That is obfuscation. We are taking one thing and we're hiding it. We're making it difficult to read, or we're making it really hard to read in the case of documents hidden within an image file. Anytime you're making something difficult for a human to understand, but not necessarily making it impossible to understand, you are obfuscating this information. So a document hidden within an image file certainly fits the categorization of obfuscation. Third on our list is passwords are securely stored in a database. Let's hope that's the case. And one of the best ways to securely store a password, as you're probably well aware, is hashing. That is one very common way to securely store a password. And of course, there are different levels of security with passwords, but at a very basic level, hashing certainly should be the one people are using. I would say at a very basic level, hashing with, I'm not going to say it. I think there's a question later on where we'll talk about making the storage of passwords even more secure. We'll talk about that in just a bit and figure out the details. And lastly, an alert shows Windows malware running on a Linux server. That is a false positive. It's telling us that Windows malware is running on an operating system that could not possibly run Windows malware, which is Linux. That's not entirely true. There are some corner cases where you could work around some of this, especially if someone's virtualizing on a Linux platform, but that wasn't the question. The question was false positive and working through those. That is the right answer for those. So make sure you're familiar with those common terms. There were other terms in here as well. Elasticity, where you have cloud-based technologies and a cloud-based platform that can quickly increase in capacity and lower itself in capacity, in many cases automatically. We have tokenization, which is a common security, especially if you look at, do I have a receipt with me? I don't think I do. But if I had a receipt with me, you can look at the receipt and you'll notice your credit card is not listed on that receipt. It's a bunch of asterisks. And then at the end, maybe the last 4 digits of your credit card number so you know which one you used. That is tokenization. Behind the scenes, your whole credit card number is there. You just don't get to see it. And lastly, federation. If you need to log into a network using credentials from a different authentication source, that's commonly referred to as federation. Those are the 7 technologies we needed to know. Hopefully, you got some of those correct. Well, whenever you start working through these and having at least trying to break down what you are doing with this, you'll notice that you probably got 4 of these right. Some of you got 3 of them right. Some of you got 2 of them right. Some of you got 1 of them correct. And in those cases, CompTIA does sometimes have the ability to provide you with maybe partial credit, but CompTIA will not be able to at least help you with this. They won't tell you if they're using partial credit or not, and they might not give you partial credit. They could, or they might not. CompTIA has at least told us that it's possible to do this. Oh, as you're right, the chat room, I was mentioning masking with your credit card. Behind the scenes, if you are using your phone especially to pay for things or your smartwatch to pay for things with a credit card, it's not sending your credit card over the network. It's sending a token across the network. That's tokenization. I was talking about masking for some reason. I did have masking in this list originally, and I took it out because I didn't want masking and tokenization at the same time because it can be confusing. Not confusing to you, apparently, just confusing to me. So don't mix them up like I just did. Make sure you get them correct on your exam. So we actually learned about 8 different technologies thanks to that. There's always an upside, right? We're going with it. It's live stream. We don't make this up. We can't rewind it, edit it out. I guess we could, but we won't. We'll keep it in there. I get this stuff wrong all the time. The chat room keeps me honest. That's one of the big reasons you're here, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So thank you for that update, chat room. They're the other side of the brain, keeping things straight. Let's do, hopefully you're familiar, before we go to this next question, hopefully you're familiar with those technologies. If you're not, make sure you read through all of them so you really know what the difference in hashing is versus tokenization versus masking. Those are all important things to have there. Make sure you're familiar with it. Let's go to the next question on our list and see if we can, of course, answer this one. We're back to multiple choice questions, thankfully, hopefully. This is a little better for folks. This question asks, a Linux administrator needs to prevent users from accessing a certain system file. Which of the following would provide this function? Would it be chmod, logger, tail, sniper, or netstat? A Linux administrator needs to prevent users from accessing a certain system file. Which of the following would provide this function? Is it chmod, logger, tail, sniper, or netstat? If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. Please go to professormester.com/QA. That's the link on your screen, and answer the question right there. This is always a good one to go through if you're trying to figure out Linux or anything around these different operating systems. That is the great way to go about doing it. So see if you know the answer. Lock in your answer. Go to professormester.com/QA to lock in your answer. It should be a good one to go through. Hopefully you're familiar with all of these. These are all real things. They don't sound like they're real things, but they are real things. Make sure you are familiar with all of them. If there's a word or a term in here you've never seen, or you're not familiar with it, or you're trying to figure out what it is, make sure you make a note of that, because you do need to know what all of these 5 answers are, even if it's not the right answer to the question. So let's see how we do. Go ahead and lock in the answer. Go to the link on your screen, professormester.com/QA is the best way to do it. See how you did. I think if you're ever in the case where you're trying to figure out, this is one of those good situations where you can do a calculatus, a limitatus, and take out the things you know it can't be. So maybe a guess can be a little bit more of an educated guess. have a look and see if you happen to know what that is. Let's, we got a lot of answers that have already come in, so let's see how you did. This question asked, a Linux administrator needs to prevent users from accessing a certain system file. Which of the following would provide this function? Is it chmod, logger, tail, sniper, or netstat? Let's see how you answered. 89% of you say it's chmod. And then everything else is single digits. 5% said logger, and then effectively a three-way tie for third between tail, sniper, and netstat with 2 and 3% apiece for each of those. Well, 89%, 88% is a pretty solid number for those of you locking in those answers, and chmod is the right one to use. This is effectively the bare permissions functionality for objects in Linux, where you can configure it to be read-only, read-write, execute permissions, everything that's there. And you can, of course, specify by the letter. You can specify in binary. You can specify in octal notation. Linux, there's always more than one way to do something. And they try to make it so that you can use many different ways to do this. This is one I think that would be really a challenge if you didn't have, because this trying to understand all of these R's and W's and X's and dashes and what they are can sometimes be a little overwhelming. So being able to go through and specify, is it R, is it W, is it X, is so much easier than having to calculate things in binary. That's the way to go about doing it. The chat room is just, they're talking about the mods in the chat. There are no mods in the chat. I am the mod in the chat. So I'll let myself know that I'm doing okay with the mods. chmod, speaking of mods, chmod was our right answer here. It really stands for mode. You are changing the mode, chmod. And that is why if you're going through and looking at figuring out where the right answer is with this, you can usually break these all down and see what they are. Let's do that a little more. If you look at these, chmod was the right answer. We have these other answers. 6% of you said logger. Logger is a command line that can really help you add things to a log file. So that's one that doesn't apply here. Log files isn't what we were trying to do. We're trying to prevent access to a certain system file. Logger obviously is not the one we would be working with. Next one is sniper. 3% of you said sniper. That is a great tool to use for reconnaissance, but doesn't help you at all at restricting access to certain files. We have tail, where you can view the last lines of a file. You can type in tail in the name of the file name, and it shows you the last, I think, 10 lines is default with tail. And you can, of course, specify more than that if you'd like. If you want to see the beginning of a file, you don't use tail, you use head. Kind of easy to remember. And then lastly, we have netstat. Netstat, a program works in Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and other operating systems. Netstat, great for viewing statistics on network performance. Here, we aren't looking for statistics or information or routing tables or any of the other 150 things the netstat does. It's a very useful utility. We were looking for something that would restrict access to a certain system file, and in this list, the only thing that does this is chmod. That's what you would use to be able to provide that restriction. Hopefully that's one you were familiar with. 89% of you did pretty good on that, so I think you did. Let's try another one, another question, and see how you do with this one. As always, of course, no answers in the chat room, please. No hints in the chat room. Our next question asks, a company requires that each employee maintain confidentiality regarding the tasks of their employment. Which of the following would be used to maintain this confidentiality? Would it be EULA, split knowledge, offboarding, NDA, AUP? A company requires that each employee maintain confidentiality regarding the tasks of their employment. Which of the following would be used to maintain this confidentiality? Is it EULA, split knowledge, offboarding, NDA, or AUP? You think you know the answer? Go to professormesser.com/QA. There's the link, and lock in that particular answer. Should be a good one to go through. If you think you know it, lock in the answer. Please no hints in the chat room. Please no answers in the chat room. We're going to go through and figure out what these are. All of these, again, are real things. So if there is a term or an abbreviation or anything on this list that you don't quite remember what it is, make sure you go through and have a look at all of these. Make a note of it so you can go back. In the chat room, people are asking, I mentioned earlier that a podcast version of this is available afterwards. And someone asking, well, where's the podcast hosted? Well, the podcast, but there are other third-party streaming places you can go that host podcasts. So if you go to Apple Podcasts, you go to Spotify, you go to, well, just pick up your favorite podcast listening service, and it's probably in there. If it isn't, send me a note. I'll be glad to add it or do whatever I can if it's possible to add it to that particular service. More than happy to do so. It may already be on the service you listen to. We'll have to find out. See what's there. Also in the chat room, Alex with the $10 super chat who says, hey, Professor Messer, just passed my Security Plus exam. I've watched all your courses from A Plus through Security Plus. I want to give you a huge thank you for doing what you do. Thanks, Alex. I want to give you a big thank you back for watching all those courses and going through them. We sure appreciate it. And we also appreciate the super chat. We of course, don't require anyone to contribute anything to keep this going, but it sure helps a lot. We do appreciate your support of the site and what we do. Let's see how you did with this question. It asked, a company requires that each employee maintain confidentiality regarding the tasks of their employment. Which of the following would be used to maintain this confidentiality? Is it EULA, split knowledge, offboarding, NDA, or AUP? Again, a big number, 88% of you say it is NDA. What is that NDA? And what about all these other answers? And why wouldn't it be those? Well, we can first talk about NDAs. NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. It's done and used in many cases that aren't just for employment. I've signed many non-disclosure agreements and been part of someone offering a non-disclosure agreement throughout my career. It's a contract. It is an agreement between two entities that says, usually between two entities, that says anything we talk about stays in the room. It's sort of like the Vegas clause. Anything that happens in here stays in here. You don't talk about it to anyone else. You don't mention what's there. It is absolutely a non-disclosure. You may not disclose anything related to what's in this agreement. You do sign an NDA when taking the CompTIA exam. CompTIA doesn't call it an NDA. They call it a candidate agreement. And if you'd like to read through it, just type into your favorite search engine, CompTIA candidate agreement, and you can list through everything that's expected of you during the exam. I like reading the candidate agreement when I'm in the exam, because that is my opportunity to kind of settle down and settle in before actually answering questions on the exam, because they give you about 10 to 15 minutes before the exam officially starts to agree to this contract, the candidate agreement. And this is, if you've ever walked into an exam center and sat down to take an exam, there can be anxiety. You're ramped up, you're ready to take the exam, you're a little nervous. This can be a good time to read through or just sit in your chair for 10 minutes and just settle down while the candidate agreement is there. Then you can sign it, and at that point, you may not tell anyone anything about what you see on the exam, because that's effectively what that non-disclosure means. And that is what a non-disclosure would mean if you're an employee. You can't say anything about what you're doing here. You work for the government, you work with some other entities, you work with companies that don't want to talk to outsiders about what they're doing, then you will have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. We've got other options here. If you happen to go through all of these, there are others you can work through. A EULA, an end-user licensing agreement, is a license for usually software that sets the terms of how you may use software. In this case, this is an employee and tasks. This is not software. Therefore, it would not be an end-user license agreement because there's not an end user using software that needs to be licensed. Split knowledge is when there are people that have different knowledge of completing a single task. It's a great security tool because you have to have multiple people involved. None of them knows what the other folks know. And it's a great way to keep multiple people included, which is much better for security than having a single person who might try to manipulate or, in some cases, do something untowards with the information or or in some cases, money they may be responsible for. We have offboarding. That's the process when someone leaves an organization. It's an offboarding process. We've also got this last option of the AUP. If you're someone who is an employee and you need to know the things that are appropriate on your network and what are not, those are usually included in your AUP. If you're ever working through a set of requirements or a set of tasks and you're wondering, is this okay to do or not? It's usually documented in your employee manual to have all of those there. If you're ever in the process of, though, trying to determine should somebody be able to say something or not about the processes we have going on, the non-disclosure agreement is the thing you should use to be able to do that. That is the right answer. Answer D, non-disclosure agreement. You got 89% of you got that one absolutely correct. That is the correct answer. Well done with that one. Before we go to the next question, and of course we have a next question, I want to thank Colonial Panic in the chat room with the $10 super chat. Colonial says, thank you so much for your study materials. Passed both exams for A+ on St. Patrick's Day. You must have had the luck of the Irish with you. I don't normally recommend taking both exams for A+ on the same day. That is something that is pretty extreme. I suspect, Colonial Panic, that you had probably some knowledge already in the industry, or you're just really, really good at retaining information, because that's a lot of information to retain for a single day for 2 separate certification exams. Thank you, Colonel Panic. That's whenever I start going through and trying to figure out where we're going to go with exams and trying to schedule them properly, it can be difficult to know when you're ready to take the exams. This is why I often tell people you should probably, before walking in the room, especially if you're going to take 2 exams in the same day, Colonel, thank you for your super chat, by the way. That is whenever I start getting through the details of this, I tell people you should probably do some Q&A. Try to do as much Q&A as you can. As other super chats have mentioned already, they have used all of these to be able to have some very good practice exams. The problem is it's hard to find good practice exams, so I wrote my own. These are my Security Plus practice exams. These are all original questions. They've never been used anywhere else on any study group or anywhere. They're only found in this book. They are exclusive to this book. And there are a few additional features about this that perhaps you might not be aware of. So let me step you through what one of these might be. I've got a page from the practice exams right here. So let's go through a question. Again, no answers in the chat room. We're going to figure this out as we go. The question A13 asks, a CISO, which is a Chief Information Security Officer, would like to decrease the response time when addressing security incidents. Unfortunately, the company does not have the budget to hire additional security engineers. Which of the following would assist the CISO with this requirement? Would it be ISO 27701, PKI, IAAS, or SOAR? So we would read that. We would pick the answer. This is a PDF. So if you wanted to go through the PDF and annotate it, you could pick different answers in this, or you can put the answers on a different form, maybe something else you're working through. But you can choose what you think the answer is. And then if you'd like to see the answers, you can go to the details, which is on page 50. And if you have the physical book, you would simply fast forward to page 50 to see the answer for this. But since you're using the PDF, there's a link in there that is perfect for this. We'll just click the answers, which takes you to page 50, gives you the question and answers again, and tells you the answer is D, SOAR. So that's the answer here. And I explained to you why that is the right answer, which I think is pretty useful. What you won't have in most other study materials is a way to know why the other answers were wrong. And I always get the questions wrong, so I want to know, why did I get it wrong? So in this book, every single wrong answer is explained. Why isn't it ISO 27701? Well, ISO 27701 standard focus on privacy and securing PII. Okay, well, that's not going to be what we want. Why isn't it PKI? We explain why. Why isn't it IAAS? And we explain that as well. So all of that is in the answers, so that even reading through the incorrect answers can sometimes help you study things that you might get on the exam, even if you get the question right. And if you get the question wrong, well, then now you know the differences between the right and wrong answers on top of that. If you've read through the question, you don't understand what they're asking, you don't understand the answer that was given, right at the bottom of the list is a link. In this case, this comes from the SY0-601 Objective 4.4 Security Configurations. And there's a link right to the video. So if you're someone who wants more information on this and you're just lost with the question, you don't remember this topic, you want some more review from this topic, there's a link right there. And since I'm in a PDF reader, I can click the back button in my reader and go right back to where I started and simply go to the next question on the list. That is my Security Plus practice exams. Hopefully, that's something that helps you as well if you go through all of these. I think that's a great way to learn, especially if you're right at the end of trying to figure out, am I ready to take this exam? Am I not ready to take this exam? It's a great way to do it. And if you purchase it with the course notes, there's even a little bit of a discount there. Find out more at professormesser.com/securitype. Let's do another question. Before we do that, let me thank Brian in the chat room for the $15 super chat. Thanks, Brian. Brian says, hey, Professor, passed my Security Plus Saturday before last. Thanks to your videos and practice test. First cert for me. Have 2 interviews this week for my first IT job. Well done. It's always nice to have those certifications in your back pocket. Stick them on the resume. Gets people's attention. They want to talk to you more and see if you're right for these jobs. It's a great way to do it. Brian says, thank you so much. Thanks, Brian, for that super chat. Thank you for your support of the site. Congratulations on your Security Plus. And we're all wishing you best luck with those 2 interviews this week. Just the beginning of what is going to be an amazing career in IT. I can feel it already. So let's go through some more questions. We've got more to go through on this list. Of course, I have more questions. The next question that we have is a multiple choice based question that asks, which of the following would prevent an attacker from using a rainbow table against a set of password hashes? Would it be rootkit, salt, AES, rat, or supply chain attack? Which of the following would prevent an attacker from using a rainbow table against a set of password hashes? Is it rootkit, salt, AES, rat, or supply chain attack? If you think you know the answer, go to the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We will figure this out eventually. I promise we will definitely get you folks figured out on the chat room. Maybe you know this one. You'll notice this is why I asked earlier, we were talking a little bit about passwords and hashing, and I kind of stopped right there because I knew there was another question coming that talked about all of this. See if you happen to know what it is. See if you are familiar with these. I think that might be something good for you to go through. See if professormesser.com/QA locks in your answer. See if you happen to know what it is. I think this would be a good one to go through. We'll talk more in the answer with this one. This is the bare minimums of what people should be doing with their passwords. See if you happen to know what it is. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. There was a question that came earlier. Let me see if I can answer this one. Answered, is my book available in stores? This one, this book here, the practice exams book, it is not. It's only available at professormesser.com. It's not available in stores. They don't want to put it in their stores. Nobody wants to put a book in a store anymore. Everything's online. Everything's digital. There are options, though, for, obviously, because I'm holding it, a physical version of the book. So you can get a printed version. And when you buy the printed version, you get the digital for free because you've already got the printed version. Why not get both at the same time? So there is a benefit to that. If you're any of my books, you have the option between a digital and physical version. And for some of you that have bought the digital version in the past, you're thinking, oh, I would rather have that physical book. Let me know, and I can send you a coupon to upgrade so you don't have to pay for the digital again. You want to buy the whole thing all at once. There's a bit of a discount you can get if you've already bought the digital version and you just want the physical. You just pay the difference, which is kind of nice. So nothing lost for that scenario. See how you do with that. That would be a great place to go. We'll talk more about the people in the chat room talking about the notes. We'll talk about the notes in just a bit as a completely different thing that might help you a lot with your studies. The notes are incredibly popular, so we'll have to see how you do with that. Let's see how you do with this, though. The question asked, which of the following would prevent an attacker from using a rainbow table against a set of password hashes? Would it be a rootkit, SALT, AES, RAT, or supply chain attack? And let's see how you did with this one. 79%. I don't feel like I'm fooling very many people today, but we are getting through some of these more complicated and challenging topics. SALT is 79% of the folks that answer the question. We have 15% that said it's AES is how you can do this, which could technically be right, but still not right. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. 3% said a RAT, not a rat, but a rat. Talk about that. 2% said rootkit, and then 1% said a supply chain attack. Because what's a question without a supply chain attack in it? Well, of course, SALT is what we were talking about. At least 80% of us thought that, and 80% of us were absolutely right. That's when you are storing your passwords in a hash, which you should be doing, but you're not storing it as a straight hash. You're adding additional information to the password. You're salting it. You're putting a little salt on your password, like you put some salt on your fries. What do you mean you don't put salt on your fries? Of course you put salt on your fries. And when you put salt on your fries, it becomes better. Well, when you put salt on your password, it becomes better, because now it's very difficult to reverse that unless you really understand what the process is for creating the salted password in the first place. And then you have to do a brute force to be able to reverse, or at least try to find the reverse of what that happens to be, because you can't reverse a hash. You have to first manually try using the same process and see if the hashes match. Very different when you're working through this. So this is one where if you're someone who is trying to store passwords, or you're thinking, what is the right way to store passwords? And you want to, maybe you're storing a password on a service and you want to ask the service if they're storing it properly, you will want to ask them, are you storing my password as a salted hash? That is a bare minimum of what people should be using, which is using a salted hash and not just a standard hash, because it will slow down the brute force process. Does this prevent anybody from gaining access to your password? It does not. Because if someone has enough time and they understand the process that was used to salt it to begin with, and they have access to the salt and the password hash, they may be able to perform a brute force. And that brute force, it might take some time, but they could eventually still brute force everything. What this is really doing is preventing someone from using a rainbow table to very quickly determine what the password might be. So adding the salt at least slows them down. And that's what we're trying to do. This is the speed bump in the brute force process, is adding the salt to this. And that is the right answer here. It is salt. That's what we would be using. Now, 14% of you said AES, which of course is an encryption standard, and it's rather advanced. The encryption standard itself and the idea of encrypting passwords is a horrible idea. It's having some type of encryption in your password seems like it should be more secure, but it's really not more secure, because if somebody grabs or finds the decryption key, they would now effectively have direct access to all of the passwords on that system that use that encryption or decryption key. So AES and the idea of encrypting passwords is never a good idea. Passwords should never be encrypted. Passwords should always be hashed with a salt at a bare minimum. So that's what we should be looking on. AES, technically, AES would prevent an attacker from using a rainbow table, because a rainbow table is all based on those hashes, but that's not how you would store passwords. So you wouldn't even be in a situation where you would use AES for this. That's not the best answer. So that's not the one you would choose on your exam either. You always choose the best answer. In this case, by far, the best answer is B, salt. Would not be a RAT, remote administration Trojan. The RATs are designed to have something where a third party could access your system from the outside. That's more of an attack type. That is not something that prevents a rainbow table being used. 2% said rootkit, and unless the rootkit somehow stopped rainbow tables, that would be useful. But that is not how rootkits work. You would not be able to use a rootkit on your system to make that happen. And then a supply chain attack. In this case, we're not dealing with the supply chain. We have a rainbow table that's trying to take advantage of a set of hashes, trying to determine what the passwords are based on those hashes. The best way to prevent that is to use SALT. That is what you would use. Yes, remote access Trojans, another way that you could say RAT. There's multiple definitions for that one, as there tends to be with security-related techniques and information. So either one of those applies. I mentioned both of those descriptions in my video about the remote access Trojan. That is a great one to go through if you're wondering about them. I show examples of me running a RAT on my system, which I do not recommend you do. So that's one you should always learn about. It's in the first section of the Security Plus exam. We talk about the different attacks. That's what we would use for those. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that certifies that you watched 1 hour of this for a CEU. And what you have to do is follow these instructions to be able to receive that email. The first thing you would do is go to the Professor Messer website. At the top or the bottom of the website is a Contact Us link. In that Contact Us link, put your name, your email address. In the subject line, put April 2022 Security Plus Study Group, and then put the super secret passphrase of the month, which is Rainbow Table. Rainbow Table is the super secret phrase of the month. So add that to the subject line, and then in the body of the message, just put anything you would like. If you don't want to just put anything in there, just put Rainbow Table again. But if you would like to put a note in there, I do read through all of these. I like it when you send the notes in so I can read up on what's going on with you. It's sort of like getting a message being sent. You're not really sending anything back. I get hundreds of these, so I'm not able to reply to all of them. But I do like reading through the messages you put in there, and I do appreciate it. That is what you would do. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. Go to the Contact Us link. There is put in the subject line that this is the April 2022 Security Plus Study Group. And in the subject line, put the super secret code word of the month, Rainbow Table. Rainbow Table. That is what you would add to make all of that work. Now, it takes me about a month, it takes me about a week, sorry, to go through all of these. But I usually get them back relatively fast. That would be the great way to do it. Try to get them to you quickly. If you do need it faster than a week, let me know. Sometimes I can rearrange these to make sure that you can get that a little bit faster. Go follow that process. You must follow the process during the CEU. If you just send me an email out of the blue, it doesn't work that way. So you can't just Discord me and be able to get an answer on that. You have to follow that process, because that means you must have watched this video to know what the process is. See how that works? That's the best way to do it. See how you do with that. We'll have to. I look forward to receiving your emails, and I'll process those probably this week. We'll get them out to you. Let's do another multiple choice question. This next one asks, which of the following would be the best example of an RTOS? Is it a USB data blocker, RAID, steganography, fog computing, or an automobile? Which of the following would be the best example of an RTOS? Is it a USB data blocker, RAID, steganography, fog computing, or automobile? It's got to be one of those. If you know the answer, it'd be good if I put the link up for you. There it is. ProfessorMesser.com/QA is the right link to use to lock in your answer. So have a look at that. See if you know what it is. This is one we really have. It's kind of a two-step process. We have to know what that is, and then we have to know how to apply it, which is really what CompTIA would like you to know as well on these exams. I think that's important to know what all of this is. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. This one not as fast, I notice. You see the numbers kind of creeping up there. No Googling. Stop with the Googling. That is not what you should be doing. You don't get Google in the room, in the exam room, so you don't get Google here. Whenever it goes slowly, I know that people are trying to figure this out. Again, the best part is, with all of these, is there's no damage here. There's nothing wrong if you get a question wrong. Nothing bad happens if you get a question wrong. In fact, it's probably good if you get a question wrong, because then you can get the question right on the exam. That's the goal, to be able to figure this out. See if you can break through the odd question of an RTOS and see if you can lock it in. See, Sherman was Googling. And then I said, no Googling. I see you, Sherman. I see you Googling. Don't do that. I don't see anyone. I see everything. This is where we should go to figure out the details. I think maybe that just determines you're very good. You're ready for IT. You just Google anything. What's the weather like? Let me Google that. How do I fix this computer problem? I'll Google that. How should we set up these servers? I'll Google all of this. It's really the right thing. We'll have to figure out what those pieces are. Nobody's damaged from this. There's no problem. We'll keep going with this. Let's see how you did with this question that asked, which of the following would be the best example of an RTOS? Is it USB data blocker, RAID, steganography, fog computing, or automobile? And I think this is probably the oddest set of answers on today's study group to be what this happens to be, and we are really not sure. Well, finally, we got a question that we're torn on. 35% of you said automobile. 25% of you said fog computing because it sounds cool. 19% of you said RAID because it is cool. And then 13% of you said USB data blocker because they are pretty important. Lastly, 9% of you said steganography because it just sounds cool. Just the word itself is pretty cool. So I guess the important part of this, and this is the challenge with A+, it's the challenge with Network+, it's the challenge with Security+, and really most certification exams, is abbreviations, acronyms, and understanding what they are. So the question asked, which of the following would be the best example of an RTOS? RTOS is a real-time operating system. It's a little better. If you've ever worked with Windows or Linux or Mac OS, you notice there have been times when you've wanted the operating system to do something for you, and it was maybe slow. Maybe it put up in Windows, it put up the wait symbol, maybe the spinning circle, or if you're in an older version of Windows, maybe it's the timer, the sand going through the timer. So that's one I think that is important to know. That when you're using the operating system, you say, give me this information right now. The operating system might tell you, I'm doing something else right now. I'll be with you in a moment. That's how Windows works. That's how Linux works. That's how Mac OS works. They're not designed to be something to provide you with immediate real-time response. They're designed to have a lot of things running at the same time, and it is able to set priorities across all of them, and certain parts of your operating system have certain higher priorities perhaps than others. Well, this could be a problem if you are, for instance, in an automobile and it's a wet, rainy day and you see something in the road and you hit the brakes. You slam on the brakes and your entire car now needs to understand what to do when that happens. This is the beauty of anti-lock brakes, is that it will examine how slick the road is. It knows the weather conditions. It understands how your car is performing at any particular time. And it decides how to brake. Even though you slammed on the brakes, it's not going to slam on the brakes because that might create an uncontrollable situation with your car. In fact, it will start and stop. It will quickly have multiple braking that it does, so that part of the time you're still in control and part of the time you're braking, which is a much more controlled and single braking process. There's a lot of technology that goes on behind the scenes of making that happen. And you have to have some type of operating system in that car so that when you slam on the brake, the operating system doesn't give you the spinning wheel and say, wait a moment, I'll be with you right now. Right now, I'm trying to tune in the radio. I'll be with you as soon as get the XM radio tuned in. As soon as I do that, we'll deal with the brake issue. That's not how it works. Your car's real-time operating system, you slam the brakes, it says, oh, I got this. Right now, brakes, we're going to hit the brakes. And make sure that we can stop the car right now. That is the beauty of real time. And it applies to more than just automobiles, of course, military environments, industrial equipment, anything where it has to happen immediately. There are priorities and things that must occur in a very, very immediate time frame. You need a special operating system to do that, and you need an RTOS, a real-time operating system. That is what you would use for this answer. In fact, if you answered E, automobile, that of all of this, that is the best example of a real-time operating system. Your car. What operating system do you run? Pontiac. That's what you can answer now. Not just Windows. We can argue about Windows and Linux and Mac OS and which is the best. No, let's argue about which car operating system is the best. And I could just do a whole nother Reddit of that, can't we? Who wants to be the mod in that one? Nobody. Automobile is the right answer. 24% of you said fog computing. Fog computing, kind of a middle ground between having all of your data local and having all of your data in the cloud. Instead of having the data in either of those places, let's put it right in the middle in the fog between what we have on our local system and what we have in a cloud-based system. Usually these are localized storage areas where we can put some data without having to send it all the way up to the cloud. Instead, we can put it on something that's relatively fast, relatively local, and we can do some additional processing and save having to upload all of this data. That is the beauty of fog computing. We have RAID, the redundant array of independent or inexpensive disks. That's another example of those abbreviations that could be really two different things. That's obviously designed to have an array of drives that are working together, usually in a mode that is redundant. In this case, we're talking about an RTOS, a real-time. That's not a redundant time operating system. It's a real-time operating system. So that is what we would use if we were wanting to have all of our data in a redundant form across multiple drives. We also have 13% that say USB data blocker. I didn't put my data blocker on my desk. I have a data blocker I carry with me so that I can plug in USB connections, and I know that no data is going to be transferred through that connection. Only the power in the pins will be transferred over that connection. I talk about this in my video about protecting yourself with USB. So make sure you're familiar with USB data blockers. And of course, it is on the CompTIA exam objectives. And lastly, steganography. 9% of you said steganography. Steganography is a way to really hide information within. We talked about earlier obfuscating information by taking a document and hiding it within an image. The term that we would commonly use to refer to that is steganography. That's what we were doing when we did that. Steganography provides us with obfuscation. See how that works? You can use a lot of big words, and they actually do mean something. They actually are important as you go through this. I like that a lot of you were Googling automobile. I wonder what it brought up in the Google search. I think it probably brought up an automobile, didn't it? I wonder which one really came up first. Which automobile was the most important one for RTOS? An automobile. I'm wondering if there was a particular automobile that came up in the list for Google. We'll have to do some Google searches. Maybe the search engine optimization for these car manufacturers should really focus on RTOS to be able to get to the top of that list. Always a challenge, isn't it? Always a challenge. And folks are even telling me, oh, well, it was Tesla. It wasn't Pontiac. How was it not Tesla? How is it Tesla and not Pontiac? We are at the top of the hour, but let's do one more question because I've just been talking this whole time. So let's do one more that asks, let me click on my side so I see it. A company has removed all of their data from a user's mobile phone, but the user's private information remains on the device. Which of the following would best describe this functionality? Would it be context-aware authentication, full device encryption, containerization, biometrics, or geofencing? A company has removed all of their data from a user's mobile phone, but the user's private information remains on the device. Which of the following would best describe this functionality? Is it context-aware authentication, full device encryption, containerization, biometrics, or geofencing? Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Get that answer in there. Lock it in. We're gonna bounce back from that last question to see how we do. If you think you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA. There it is. Lock in that answer. There's your link. It's on the screen. It's right there at the bottom. professormesser.com/QA. What's that QA stand for? I don't know. I don't know what it's for. I just put a couple letters together and seemed right. See if you know this answer. I know it's cut off a little bit there at the top. Let me see if I can scroll down that's a little better. Now we can fit everything on the screen for those of you that are having a problem with it being cut off like I am. We got you covered. I got you back. And feel for all these folks in the chat room. How do I memorize this? Well, I did write the questions. I did at least have a little bit of being able to do this. I love people saying it's quality assurance is what the Q&A is for. It's that not quite. I guess it could be, sure. I guess if you're telling me if it's good or not, it could very well be quality assurance. And they like how I say file. I got a file on my computer. It's the southern U.S. I don't know what to tell you. A file. I have a file on my computer. I got a file on my computer is how that works. It is question and then the chat room telling me, no, it's question and answer, isn't it? Yes, it is. QA is indeed question and answer. I think it is. Why isn't it quality assurance? It could also be quality assurance. I'm giving you credit as well. It is not quirky aardvark, or it hasn't been, Colonel, but now it is. Now I think we'll make it that as well. File, oil, iron, Coca-Cola. Yeah, this is how it works, folks. That's where I grew up. So that is exactly where we would be. Let's see how you did with this one, since we're now making fun of how I talk. You're not making fun of me. I know I talk funny. That's all right. A company has removed all of their data from a user's mobile phone, but the user's private information and all their files remain on the device. Which of the following would best describe this functionality? Is it context-aware authentication, full device encryption, containerization, biometrics, or geofencing? Let's see how you answered. 76%, not quite as strong as the others, but we're going to go with this, is containerization. Answer C is what folks said would be the right answer for this. There's many different definitions for containerization. This one, of course, is very specific to a user's mobile phone, so that should have given you some context as to what we were talking about. Most of our mobile device managers, which is a platform that's used to manage mobile devices in many environments and many companies, where they can have some management of your mobile phone, some management of your tablets, the same way that they would constantly manage your laptop computers. Often through our laptops, we're managing through Active Directory. But to be able to do this on a mobile phone, people are often bringing their own phones to work and putting company data on their own phones. Well, this is a little bit of a challenge for the security professional who wants to be sure that all of their company data is private, but doesn't want to delete someone's private information from their phones, which is what we used to do. So people used to leave a company and the company would just delete everything on their phone. If you deleted everything on my phone, first I would have to cry a little bit. I'd be in a small fetal position in the floor over there. But I have everything backed up in iCloud, so I guess I would just restore from my iCloud. But what a hassle. And many people don't have backups for some reason of their mobile devices. Make sure you go through and get backups of all of these mobile devices. It's incredibly important that you have backups because anything can happen. These days, of course, the beauty of this is that a company can separate out just their data on your mobile device. And that would certainly be a little container. That's a little partition on your mobile device just for company data. And that's what the mobile device manager would be able to access. This means that your user can still have their own private data on their phone, but the company can also have their private data on the phone, and it can all be protected in the same way. That's a good middle point. And then somebody leaves the company, they go to a different department. You can tell the mobile device manager, just delete the company data, leave the user's data there, and absolutely you'll be in good shape. That is the right answer. It is containerization. 76% of you chose C for containerization. That is the odd little term we have created to describe that particular instance of having a user's data and company data separated or partitioned out into their own areas of your mobile device. It would not be context-aware authentication. Context-aware authentication not only takes into account the username and password that you're using to log in, but it looks at other things too. It looks at other context. For instance, from where are you logging in? Let's look at the GPS coordinates of where you happen to be right now. Oh, you're at home. You're in the same state. You're in the same city as where you work. We'll let you log in. But what if you're logging in and your phone GPS says that you are in Romania, you're in China, you're in France, you're in South Africa. Well, that's nowhere near any of our company locations. Why would you be logging in from those locations? Perhaps we will use that context to not allow you access, but instead give you a message that says, we think there might be a problem with your login. You need to call the help desk and we'll get you back up and running again. That adds a little bit of additional information that can be used during the authentication process in a different context. We've got 4% that said geofencing. Geofencing is a way for the person managing the mobile device manager to allow or disallow certain features on your phone depending on where you happen to be in the world. So if you're in the building, maybe your camera doesn't work because it's a very secure area. We don't want any of that information leaking out, so we'll disable the camera that's on your phone. When you leave the building, it automatically realizes you left the building thanks to geofencing, and now your camera works again. So you can use it when you leave the office. And you don't have to do anything. It happens to know where you are. All that happens automatically. Biometrics is another authentication factor that could be used. I use biometrics on my phone. You can use biometrics as a face camera to look at your face for Face ID. Maybe it uses a fingerprint. Maybe it uses some other type of something about you to be able to determine whether you really are you logging into that device. Obviously not what we were looking for in this question. And lastly, full device encryption, which pretty much all of our mobile devices today use full device encryption. You don't have access to any of that data on a phone or a tablet until you authenticate or unlock the phone to be able to gain access to that. That is great for security, but that is not how you're able to remove company data and still leave the user's data there. The best answer here, the only one that really makes sense, answer C, containerization is what we were looking for. And if you're someone who will be managing a mobile device manager, containerization is something you'll be working with all the time. We talked about some crazy topics in this particular study group. All of this information came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Go to professormesser.com/objectives, and it's a great way to know exactly what may be asked of you on the exam. This is a very common question I get, which is, how do I know I'm ready to take this exam? Well, do you know everything about the exam? Do you know everything that's there and all of the topics that are listed in here? If you don't, then you'll need to go back through this list to be able to figure all of that out. That is one that might help you as you go through and try to figure out, am I ready? Am I not ready? Here's your final checklist. This helps you really understand, are you ready to be able to take this exam? Do you really know everything you need to know? I think it's a great place to go. If you like this study group, we'd love for you to come back and do some more with us. We do one of these study groups for Security Plus every month. Our next Security Plus study group is on May the 25th. Before that, we have other study groups happening. For example, we have an A Plus study group on the 10th and the 12th. We have a Network Plus study group on the 18th. So if you're studying for some other certification exams, we'd love for you to come back and join us. Or if Security Plus is your thing, go find out on May the 25th. We'll be back here. Of course, these dates can sometimes change. Sometimes you're watching this on a replay and we're way past May at this point. So you can always go to our calendar. It's at professormesser.com/calendar, and you'll know exactly when the next live event is going to be. If you're on our Discord, I've got an events channel on the Discord where I update the events. I've got to do that today because now we've gone through this month of events. I need to add the new ones to the list. You'll find that on Discord at professormesser.com/Discord. Great place to go. Some folks were mentioning earlier about course notes. These are my course notes. Of course, everything that's in my videos is nice to watch, but there are so many Security Plus videos that you would have to go through to see every single video. What if all of the text, all of the graphics, all of the information that's on these is available in the course notes? Well, that's what I've done. I've created this PDF, and in the PDF are, for this current version of Security Plus, 121 pages of notes that follow each individual video in order with all of the text, all of the important tables, all the important graphics. Everything is in there. Those are my course notes. They are also available on a physical and digital version. You can find it on my website on the pull down links, or simply go to professormesser.com/601cn. And as I mentioned, if you get the course notes and the practice exams together, you actually get a little bit money off, a little bit of a discount if you do that. And of course, if you get the Success Bundle, I can send you the DVD. What used to be a DVD, now it's flash drive. I can send you if you get the physical edition, you get the USB drive and the books all shipped to you. So it's all available on the site, digital, physical, whatever makes sense for you. It's a great way to learn the information that's available in those Security Plus videos. There is a lot more to go through for Security Plus. We do this all in our videos. You can, of course, follow us for our weekly Security Plus pop quiz questions on Twitter and Instagram by going to professormesser.com/Twitter and professormesser.com/Instagram. Don't forget about subscribing to our YouTube channel at professormesser.com/YouTube. If you like this video, we'd love it if you hit the thumbs up on here. It's a great way to let YouTube know that you like this content, and it also lets me know that you like the content as well. If you're in the US and Canada, we've got those discounted vouchers for you. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers. Not available in the rest of the world quite yet. We're still working on that. I don't know if I'll be able to make that happen or not, but at least you've got some options in the US and Canada for discounted vouchers. And don't forget about the course notes and exams at professormesser.com/securitycn. It's a great way to go through and determine what the best way is going to be to study for your exam. We love doing these live streams, and we're not done yet. We've got an after show to do. I'm going to stop asking questions. Instead, we're going to kind of turn the boat around, and you're going to ask me questions in what we call our study group after show. Stick around for that. That's coming up next. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Okay. Had to get some coffee there. Let's get rid of that. Let's put this up. Let's put this over here. There we are. Let's do some Q&A, everybody. There were some that already came up. I've got some questions there. Let me change the lower third so that you can see where you can go to ask these questions. I'm simply watching the chat that's on YouTube. This is also the same chat that is available on my website at professormesser.com/live. And that chat is simply the embedded YouTube chat. So if you're watching YouTube, you're in the right place. If you're watching on my website, you're in the right place. It's the same chat. So we'll have all of that there. So I take questions from the chat room. You can ask really anything about what we're doing with the chat. I don't know that I'll answer anything, but we can certainly talk through advantages, disadvantages, and other things as well. We've got questions that have come in already. I want to address one since today is 4/20. This is a question about A+, because today on April the 20th, the new exam series for A+ is now, I guess, technically available, which is kind of nice. So someone was asking a question regarding A+. So now you technically, if you're studying for your A+ exam, there are 2 exams that you have to take. Traditionally, in the past 3.5 years, that's been the 220-1001 and the 1002. Those exams are still available and will continue to be available through October the 20th. And right now, if you are right here in this study group and you are indeed studying for your A+, I would highly recommend you study for the 1101 or 1001 and 1002. Not the new ones. Study for the existing ones. That's because when the exam is first released, there are very limited study materials available. Now, if you go out to the Professor Messer website, we're already producing new videos. We've already got our course notes available. But there's other things that would be nice. Like, for instance, there are no practice exams yet for this new exam. It's just too new. It's literally the first day of these new exams. It usually takes months for these to finally get published and out and available and for people to start talking about these. So I highly recommend, since you have 6 months from today to earn your A+ certification, study the existing version. There are tons of books available. There are tons of video series available. There are plenty of practice questions available. People understand the topics on the exam. They can talk to you about the topics. There's lots of training classes you can take. There's so many resources available. Why would you take a harder version of the same exam? I don't know why, but some people feel that it's very, very important that they take the latest version of the exam. I feel it's more important that you actually pass the exam, that you earn your certification. And I think your best chance for passing the exam as we sit here on April the 20th of 2022 is to take the 1001 and the 1002. So that's what I highly recommend if you're planning to do this. Some people want to take the new version of the exam. I get it. I understand. I just think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by doing that. And that's not the purpose of these. The purpose is earning that certification. So I would, of course, recommend you earn the certification if you're going through this. I think it's probably one of the most important decisions when you're trying to start this as to which version of the exam you take. That's what I would recommend as well. Let's go back to other questions in the chat room. Let's see how we do. If you would like to ask a question, just go to the chat, type it in. I'll be glad to put there. One of the questions there is, in what use case would an open proxy be appropriate? Can't think of one. Cannot think of one. Let's say that here's the use case for an open proxy. You are in a very secure environment. You're willing to circumvent the security that has been placed onto this network by using an open proxy that's somewhere on the internet. This is very common thing to see for things like high schools and middle schools because the kids don't like that there's a firewall and they try to work around the firewall by going to an open proxy. And let's say you don't mind getting malware. In fact, malware is great with you. You're fine getting malware on your system. There's your use case. If you like malware and you like being fired for circumventing existing security systems, an open proxy is a perfect solution for you. I don't recommend using one. Open proxies, who knows what those proxies are sending down to your system? Who knows who's running that proxy? It is just not a good idea to go out and use an open proxy just that's available on the internet somewhere. An awful, awful security decision. Don't do that. Do not use an open proxy. I can't think of a good reason to use an open proxy. There's just not a good one. Not these days. Way too easy to circumvent a security and way too easy to get your system infected by using an open proxy. Or at the very least, they're watching you surf. It's a proxy. They can do that. So that's another one where security is an enormous concern. Why would you send all of your data to a third party and have them look through it? And you don't even know who it is. I don't even let people in my family look at my phone. You know, why would I let a stranger? So that's the real problem, is figuring out those things. Our private personal information being sent, we need to protect it as well as we can. There's no way you can protect it if you're going through an open proxy. Absolutely important to know. Gene in the chat room says, I passed Security Plus and Network Plus using your videos, notes, and practice exams. Thank you. ITIL 4 next. You're doing ITIL. This must be something that's corporately mandated. I can't think of any reason that a technical person would take ITIL. The IT infrastructure library is what that refers to. It is really a business level certification, kind of understanding processes. ITIL is not a technical certification. There are many organizations, though, that require technical people to take these sort of business level certs. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense at all. But managers got to manage. Businesses got to business. And as companies get larger, they do dumb things. So that's a really good example. I suspect this is a large company that's having to go through this to make technical people understand business processes. That just hurts to say. It gives me a little bit of pain to say that out loud. Don't do that, business people. The technical people need to learn technical things. They need to learn more about Active Directory. They need to learn more about Understanding managing a Linux device. How about keeping all of your servers up and running? Those would be really good things. But the understanding business process and other business related aspects of how IT can work better with the business side, no, that's not their job. But you somehow are making it that way. But here's the good part. Some companies like you to have it. Okay, it's a checkbox. We'll get the certification, non-ITIL certified, and anybody who wants somebody who's ITIL certified, now you qualify. It's kind of weird, isn't it? I'm getting a certification to qualify for a position that will not use the content that is included in that certification. So there you go. That's one of those that is just one, sort of like you have to do it. It's just part of life. Is there a good reason? There is not. Does it make sense? It does not. Do you sometimes have to do it? Yes, you do. So you just do it. And who's it going to hurt? It's not going to hurt anybody. And quite honestly, ITIL's not that difficult. So it's very broad. It's very high level. It's a lot easier than learning the details of Active Directory. I'll tell you that. So definitely go through that. In the chat room, question: when does the Security Plus 501 retire? It has retired already, unless you are somewhere else in the world. Let's find out what their dates are. I thought the 501 was still available for other. Was it available for other languages other than English? I think everything is retired now, though. I think we're past that point. And in fact, on the CompTIA website for Security Plus, put up what I'm seeing here. Indeed, 601 is the only one listed, and it is available for English, Japanese, Vietnamese, Thai, and Portuguese. No Spanish? No Spanish, CompTIA? Seriously? So it's covered at least those. Maybe Spanish is coming. We'll have to find out what will be for Security Plus, but apparently 501 now's gone. 501's been gone a long time in the U.S. The 601 has been the primary one for at least a couple of years now. So that's we're long past the point of 501. So if you have any study materials that say they're for the 501, you need to make sure you get rid of those. You need 601 materials. There were dramatic changes between the 501 and the 601. So throw out all the old stuff. Go to the new ones. Trust me, it's enormous, the number of changes. In the 601, lots of new content, lots of new information you need to know. It's much bigger. Definitely don't use 501 materials to study. You'll walk into that exam and you won't do very well if you take a 601 exam after studying 501 content. It's kind of a standard best practice in general is always make sure your study materials match the version of the exam you're planning to take, and you'll do fine. That's really the important part. Let's see what else questions that are coming through. We'll have to go through a lot of idle conversations now that have come up through here. Other things that you might find, is there a resource I'd recommend for studying ISO 27001? Well, that's a whole bunch of questions that I have about that. First, what do you want to study about ISO 27001? And to what level? A lot of these ISO certifications are extremely large and extremely detailed. So I would highly recommend that if you're in that place and that point where you've been told you need to know more about this particular standard, make sure you understand the scope. Make sure you understand how deep you have to go. There are people that all they do in their jobs is understand the details of these ISO standards, and they don't do anything else. There may be people working in your environment, working in your company, that all they do is they make sure that the rest of the company complies with those standards. That's how important some of these standards are. So that's one I think would be important to know, especially if you're in one of those roles. For the purposes of Security Plus, you just need a high-level understanding of what that particular standard is about. But most of the information that's in the details of that, you don't need to know for Security Plus. So that's the important part. So the question, Alejandro in the chat room, I'm studying for A+, kind of in the middle of retirement for the old 1001. We are not. We're not in the middle of retirement. The 1001 retires on October the 20th. The 1001 and 1002 retire on October the 20th. And after October the 20th, those exams will no longer be available. We're not in the middle. That's the date. So you have 6 months. Right now, nothing has changed. We are exactly where we were yesterday with the 1000 series exams. You've got 6 months before they go away. Get it done before they go away, and I think you're fine. That's the real key. Now, in about 3 months from now, maybe about 3 months, I would imagine that the industry will have published a lot more books, a lot more practice exams, a lot more video series. You'll see more content in about 2 to 3 months from now. That's usually how it rolls out when we see these hitting the market. But right now, there's not a lot available. You go out and try to find a book on the 1101 and 1102. You probably will find one, maybe two, maybe. With the existing exams, there's 20, there's 25, there's tons. And you've got 6 months. So that's plenty of time to study for both of those exams. Lock it down, and you'll be good to go. The employers don't care which version of the exams you take. Whether you take the 1000 series exams, you earn your A+. You take the 1100 series exams, you earn your A+. You're in exactly the same thing. And the certifications aren't labeled with a version number of the exam. So that's one of those where I think it'd be very useful to be able to kind of understand what you're trying to accomplish, what the time frames are, and then you can make a better decision about which ones you should be following. Now, if you're watching this video in June, July, August timeframe, well, then you probably want to see what's available on the market. Maybe some books are out. Maybe there's more videos. Maybe you have enough information to feel comfortable taking the new exams. I think at that point, most people will. It's a good time to make that transition. So just keep watching it. Keep looking at the dates. Keep seeing how fast your studying is going. Fortunately, the difference between the 1000 series and the 1100 series is that about a 30 to 40% difference in content, which is still quite a bit of change in content, about 30%. There's still quite a bit of content that's changed. I don't want to give you the wrong numbers. I'm going to pull up my my Google Sheets for this so we can really break down what it happens to be. But the real key is understanding what you need to know and when you need to know it. So I'm going to bring up for example, if you take the 220 1101, it is 27%, almost 28% of that exam is brand new. On the 1102, 36% of the exam is brand new. So there's a lot of information on the newer exam that's just not in your books today. So that's why I tell you, take the exam that makes sense. That applies to A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, or any other certification you may be taking. It's really important you keep that in mind for your studies. And same thing for security. You know, don't be in a situation where you are studying from the wrong materials. It will cost you when you sit down and take the exam. In the chat room, Linda says, went from 0 to passing both A+ exams within 5 months. So that's a really good example of, first, congratulations on your A+ certification. Now you're locked in for 3 years. Now, of course, they're going to retire the exams. Doesn't matter what they do with the exams if you're already certified. They could change the exams every day. Well, you're certified for 3 years once you pass. So you're good. You don't have to worry about it. That's the real key is just get the cert, put it in your pocket, put it on your resume, start using it. Never wait. Some of you maybe think, I'll just wait till some books come out. I'll just wait until maybe there's more videos available. Well, you can do that. But the folks who aren't waiting are now competing with you for jobs, and they already have their A+ certification. But you waited, so you don't. Who do you think is going to get hired? That's the real issue. It's very competitive out there, and we want to be at the top of the list. And be at the top of the list, you need to have that certification in your pocket. So that's it's more of a strategy than anything. Another question in the chat room. This is more of a kind of a relative question because it's talking about Network Plus. Is the Network Plus N10 008 harder than the N10 007? And I would say for the purposes of just comparison, that the 007 for Network Plus and 008, which are also in a transition period right now, the 007 retires in June. Those two exams, I would say, are pretty comparable in their difficulty level. Obviously, the two exams have different information in them. There's about 40% difference for the 008, but the difficulty of learning that content is about the same in both of those exams. So one is not easier than the other. They're about the same. So that's something to think about. Same thing with A+. The current version of A+, or I should say the kind of the older version, the 1000 series, and the 1100 series, pretty comparable from a difficulty level perspective. How difficult is that dive? It's about the same as the other. So the information is obviously different between them, but it's about the same difficulty level of difference between both of them. So don't worry about which one's there. You should be take the one that makes sense for you. I would say if you're starting with Network Plus right now, we're in April, it retires in June. That's not a lot of time. The 008's been out since September. There are plenty of books, plenty of videos, plenty of things you can study from for the 008. If you're starting right now, I would recommend taking the 008. There are some of you right now that are studying for the 007. Keep studying. There are people that will be taking the 007 exam the last day it's offered, which I think is the end of June. So on June 30th, there will be people still taking the 007 exam. So that's something to think about. It's just the way it works. It just happens every time that way. I thought maybe you would start to see people very slowly moving away from it, or even quickly moving away from an older exam and jumping into the new exam. But in reality, most people will study all the way right up to the end. A lot of people pass their exams. Some people don't. And then they have to start over the next day. Really not start over, but now you have to learn the difference that you didn't learn before on the 008. So a big challenge in trying to figure this out. These are good strategy questions. When you're trying to figure out which exam to take, these are good questions to kind of break down and go through. Here's one that's not a strategy question. The chat room, Coco Bra says, I keep going back and forth on what career path, it doesn't talk like that. I keep going back and forth on what career path I want to go down, networking or security. All right, this is a good question. I enjoy creating creative problem solving more than anything. What do you recommend? I think that's probably a very common characteristic or trait for people who are in IT, is we love solving problems. We like having a problem, deciphering what's going on, and then fixing it. That's a great feeling, isn't it? I think we kind of get that little boost. We get that little something added to the bloodstream every time we solve a problem. It's very exciting to figure it out. I figured it out. Here's the right answer. Now it's working. There's no better feeling than that. I think that's very common in IT folks in being able to do that. And I think in networking and security, you have plenty of chances to troubleshoot. You have plenty of chances to solve a puzzle. There are lots of great puzzles to solve in networking and tons of great puzzles to solve in security, really all of IT. There are plenty of puzzles to solve. You will never be wondering if the next day will be a query or a question or a challenge. There are always challenges in what you're doing. But if you're trying to decide between networking and security, there's probably a path for you that you need to think about. Generally, security roles within IT are not entry-level jobs. They're at least compared to the rest of IT, Security Plus doesn't have a lot of entry-level jobs. Most of the entry-level jobs in IT are either help desk or things that operate at the desktop, working with Windows from a user's perspective. Those tend to be entry-level jobs in IT. And what we usually, when you're working into a security role, and I'm speaking specifically as someone who is a senior systems engineer for a next-gen firewall company. So I was in these security roles and talking to security people in different companies every day. This is one of those scenarios where you really need a solid foundation in technology in general before walking into a security role. In security, you need knowledge of the workstation, of operating systems, of the network. And then on top of that, you need the security piece. That's a lot of information, a lot of training, a lot of learning, a lot of ongoing knowledge that you have to know. You have to know how Windows works. You have to understand what's going on with Linux. In some cases, understand Mac OS. You need to understand how all of those communicate across the network. What do the protocols look like? How do the applications operate? How does TCP and UDP handle different situations? All of this builds a foundation. It builds a group of knowledge that you can now use to apply towards security. So I think a lot of people want to go to security. A lot of people said, I got in a university. They had a cybersecurity program, whatever that is. And I'm learning about security because when I get out of school, I want a security role. I would think that would be great, except there aren't a lot of those. You know, you'll get out of school and there won't be a lot of roles available. There are some out there. So don't think I'm saying there aren't any. There are certainly security jobs out there, but it is a small sliver of what's available when you compare all of the other entry-level jobs that are available in IT. I didn't start in security. My job, my career ultimately ended in security, but when I started really at the desktop side. Really, I started with the hardware itself, and then moved into operating systems, and then moved into networking, and then moved into protocol analysis, and then moved into security. So it was a gradual move, and only in the last 15 years of my career was I in security. The first section of my career was learning everything I needed to learn so that I could work in a security role. So this is the way you should be thinking about your strategies for your career is, how do I build a foundation of knowledge? How do I become an expert on what's happening across the network? How do I understand what's happening underneath the scenes of Windows and Linux and Mac OS? How do I really understand across the board how all of these things work together? And then how do I put on top of that firewalls, intrusion prevention, malware detection, authentication, authorization, IPsec tunnels, all of that. And of course, designing, implementing, and managing all of those pieces and troubleshooting all of those pieces. You really have to understand everything that came before. Now, there are some roles that are entry level in security. If you're in a very large area, maybe a geography where you've got a big city. If you're in the Southeast, you're in Miami, you're in Atlanta, you're in Jacksonville, you're in one of these big cities, Charlotte, there are probably companies that have security operations centers in those geographies, SOCs, we call them, an SOC, the Security Operations Center. In those SOCs, they do tend to hire kind of level 1 help desk, but for a SOC. It's kind of what they do. It's a great place to understand customer service, to get in the role of understanding all of the security terminology and nomenclature, really see the processes that occur in security in these environments. Those are great security jobs. You're not doing a lot with security in that role. You're really watching and learning what happens with security in that role. And even then, to be able to move higher up in a security role, you're still going to need knowledge of operating systems. You're still going to need knowledge of networking. You still can't get away from that, but at least you're already in that particular area of IT, which is security. Those are fun jobs because you get to learn a lot in a very short period of time. And that's what I would recommend too, that you absolutely look around for those jobs if you're interested in security. They're great entry-level positions. And even if you start there, and then you go off and work with a server management team or with a cloud management team or with a network management team, and you sort of, I don't want to say leave security, but you move outside the scope of a SOC or a specific security related role. You've still now got that security knowledge and experience in your list of jobs that you have. And it's a great place to learn so that when you start working with operating systems, you start working with the network, you start working with the servers, You now are thinking from the perspective of someone who has some type of knowledge in security, and you understand how important and your responsibilities are associated with those operating systems, networks, and other things that you're working on. That's what I would recommend, is being able to have that understanding. And you'll eventually boomerang back into security, because I think that's where we all end up. I think once we go through all of these things, for a lot of us, we know we want to be in security. We're doing all of these things through the years. You've gone through 10 years of jobs, and then finally you're qualified to work on the maybe a security analyst, junior security role, something relating really detailed in IT security. It's a great place to go. So that's what I would recommend for those of you interested in security. You know, I think a lot of people watch the internet. The internet is bad for telling you what you need to know or what you should do with your career, because all the internet says is go get a cybersecurity degree, go learn about security. Security is one of the hottest jobs out there. You should go get a security job. We have a security boot camp for you. You should take our security course, security, security, security. And then you do all of that, and then you look for a job that you can use those skills, and there aren't any. You're wondering, why did I just go through all of this security stuff? Because the internet told you should, without actually telling you, oh, and by the way, there aren't any jobs out there for this. Because people are willing to pay for it. It's really a bad situation. You do have to do some homework. Make sure you understand. You should not be taking a training class or learning a certification or earning a certification unless you know what you're going to do with that. I think a lot of people see that others are successful when they get their A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, and they say, well, I'll just get those 3. And then they get the 3 certification. They go, okay, what do we do with this? Like, you should have had the plan before you started. That you're doing it in reverse. You have to figure out where you want to be, and now you have to figure out what little pathway do we put to be able to walk. What stone should I be put in this path to be able to get all the way to that final goal, or even just the local goal? So you need to think about, do I need a Security Plus certification? I don't know. Are employers in your area asking for a Security Plus certification? In some parts of the country they are. In some parts of the country they are not. So you have to balance out, what do you want to do? Do you just want that entry level into the help desk? That's how a lot of us get started in IT. We stay at the help desk for 9 months, a year, 6 months, whatever it is. And then we move on to something else that's interesting to us. The workstation team, the server team, the networking team, the database team, the cloud team, whatever it is. So that's the goal. Is I would love it if everybody could just start at the top. Let's all start in security. It doesn't work like that. You have to lead up to a security role, because there's so much you have to know when you walk in the room. It's like saying, why are you starting at help desk? You should ask to be the CEO. That's where you should start. There's a reason you don't start at the CEO level. There's a reason you start in the mailroom. There's a reason you start at the help desk. It's to get that foundation. So you just open your eyes and watch what goes on around you and understand the processes, the procedures, the technical side of things. Learn from the customer service. You'll make mistakes in customer service. You'll make mistakes in technical things. You learn from those things, but you need to make the mistakes first so that you will be ready later on and will not make any more of those mistakes. That's the reason we work up to that. So that's why I really focus on this. So, and this is a really good point people make. So Security Plus is for the help desk? No. Security Plus is a security-related, entry-level security-related certification. And there are some jobs out there that would like you to be Security Plus certified so that you have a foundational knowledge in security for that particular role. But it is certainly not global. It's not something that everyone wants. It has like everything else, there is a specific end to that means. But if you don't know what the end is, why are you putting together the means? Why do you think that there's certain certifications you should go out and get right now? You don't even know what you're working towards. So you have to reverse that process. Put a mirror in front of yourself and say, why am I doing this? What am I trying to get to? If you've not looked at the jobs in your area, go look at the jobs. Go do some research. Just sit down this afternoon, Go to your favorite job posting site. Go to Indeed, go to Dice, go to LinkedIn Jobs, go to wherever you go in your particular area of the world, and go see what jobs are out there for entry-level IT. Go search for help desk. Go search for Windows administrator. Go search for security engineer. And go see what the differences are in requirements for all three of those. And at that point, you will get it. At that point, you'll realize, oh, okay, that's why there's a pathway to be able to make that happen. So it is a bit of a challenge. I do have a number of recommendations there, and hopefully you can think about some of that advice and see what makes sense. There was a question earlier in the chat where somebody said, do I need a cover letter for my resume? And this is one we can argue about all day, and we probably will because it's now been asked. But I really tell people, if you don't provide a cover letter, you've missed an opportunity. People read the cover letters. The people receiving the resumes, whether it's HR, whether it's the manager who's doing the hiring or an intern, somebody's reading it. They do read the cover letters. And so most people will write a very generic cover letter. Thank you for this opportunity to apply for the position of Help Desk Analyst 1. I'm very excited in the opportunity to provide my skills in a company such as yours. I hope if you have any questions, you will contact me below. You've said nothing. You've spent 2.5 paragraphs saying zero. You're not helping yourself. So I think a cover letter should be the thing that before someone looks at your resume, they already know what you know. They already understand how good of a fit you are for this particular job. And you've already set the stage for the resume that's underneath. That's a pretty important thing. That's a pretty important job. That role of setting the stage is super important. So I tell people all the time, definitely have a cover letter, but it has to be a good cover letter. Otherwise, just don't send it at all. I highly recommend creating a T, the letter T, cover letter. I have a description. In fact, I did this from my resume, my sample resume that I put into a series of videos. I have 2 videos on this. One is 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. And the other one, and the one you should watch for cover letters, is 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. And in that one, I explain how to create a T cover letter. Here's a shortcut of what a T cover letter is. Like the letter T, there's a left side and a right side. On the left side, you list the things the employer wants from someone in this role. You need experience in Windows. They want you to have knowledge of Azure cloud computing. They want somebody who's familiar with Palo Alto Networks firewalls. You know, they list those things in the job description. So you will pull a number of those bullets from their job description. Hopefully it's the bullets that fit you the closest. That's what you're looking for. Put those on the left side of the T. On the right side, you put your qualifications. Now, we need somebody who's familiar with Windows or an expert with Windows. And then you could say, I have knowledge in Active Directory, configuring and setting up passwords on an Active Directory network, and imaging Windows in a large-scale upgrade. You know, whatever your skills are, that's what you put on the right side. And they might say, we need someone knowledgeable with Palo Alto Networks. I have a Palo Alto Networks certified Palo Alto Networks administrator certification, whatever their cert is called these days. So you've got sort of a, here's what you're asking for. Here's how I am the perfect person for this job and why I should get it. Here's another thing you're asking for. Here's another perfect fit. Isn't this working out well? Here's another third thing you're looking for. Here's the third thing I fit perfectly for this job. And then at the bottom, you can say, you know, it looks like this is a match made in heaven. Maybe don't put it that way. But as you can see from this list, we've got a lot in common. I think I'm a good fit for this position. I'd love to discuss this with you further. Thank you for the opportunity. Sincerely. There's your cover letter. Done. We haven't even gotten to your resume yet. And you've already proven to somebody how good of a fit you are for this job. So that's really where you go with those pieces. Are they great to highlight soft skills the resume doesn't include? Maybe. I don't think employers care so much about highlighting soft skills in a cover letter as they do highlighting the things they were asking for to begin with. So once you get to the interview, then you can kind of work through the process of there's some other soft skills. Let me tell you about the things that are there. For the cover letter, you've got 15 seconds. I mean, you've literally got almost no time at all. You've got a few seconds for someone to look at and say, is this just a generic cover? Oh, no, he put something on there. Oh, he got a Palo Alto Network certification. Okay, we're putting this guy in our keep pile. So we'll figure out, get 20 people in the keep pile, and now they'll go through those 20 and figure out, let's talk to 5 of these folks. So having that as a way to get you on the positive side is what you're trying to do. Whether it's fair or not, the process of going through resumes, and I'm speaking as someone who was a systems engineering manager, the process of going through resumes, you have a lot of data to go through. You have a lot of documents to go through, a lot of separate resumes. And we really look at the first page of your resume and go, are they a fit? Not really. Reject. How about this one? Perhaps. We'll put them on the keep list. I mean, we're giving 10 seconds, 15 seconds for each of these resumes. And we're really making a decision right there. Yes, keep or not keep, go or no go. And we're hopefully putting you in the go pile. And then once we get the go pile, we really start sifting through a little closer, reading through more of the resumes, reading through more of the cover letters, trying to learn a little more about the folks, and then cutting it down from there. So you always want to be on that side where you're in the good pile. You're in the good place. No, the real good place. You're in the one where we're going to keep these. We're going to go through them. You're still in the running. And that's what you want to be, is still in the running. What you're trying to do is get a call, get an interview, get a chance to talk to somebody. That's the goal of this. The goal is not to decisively and extensively detail every aspect of your knowledge, every bit of information you could ever pull out of what you do. We know you took out the garbage at the fast food restaurant, but you are not a sanitary engineer. We have to sift through all of that. Ultimately, we want to find a resume, get a resume in front of somebody that would make them want to talk to you. And at that point, your resume kind of becomes secondary. In fact, I've often gone into an interview. In fact, my last interview, my last job I ever had, I walked in. None of the people I met with, I was flown from Florida to California. None of the people I met with had my resume in front of them until they came into the room. They were way too busy. There was a startup. They were running every day, all day. They didn't have time. Somebody else sifted through the resumes and said, you need to talk to this person. And they trusted them and said, okay, I'll talk to them. And at that point, I handed them a copy of my resume and said, thanks for being here. Why don't you look over the resume real quick? I know you only have a few seconds to really do that. Make sure you make note of the Nmap book I wrote. Make sure you make note of the existing job I have with a security company. Make sure. So I listed out 2 or 3 things that I know were a perfect fit for what they were looking for. Make sure you notice I was SE of the Year associated with this, and this is an SE job. I could bring those skills to you. I mean, those are the things you got to promote yourself in that first 30 seconds and say, let's talk about those things. And if you lead it a little bit in those scenarios, it's great. Some people like leading the interview because they're just not good interviewers, and they have a list of questions and they just go down the questions. In a situation that was a challenge, well, can you explain what the challenge was and how you handled it? Okay, great. Yeah, we can do that. Or we could talk about these things that you're looking for and how I would fit best with that. And because most of the time, if it's a good interview, they sit down, they spend the first 10 seconds scanning the top half of your resume page, and then they say, well, tell me about yourself. I'm a Capricorn, and I like ice cream, I guess. I like long walks on the beach That's not the situation you want to be in. You got to have an answer. Like, thanks for having me in here. I read your job description. It was a perfect fit. And I think so because here's the things I've done. You have to take the lead in those interview situations. And so make sure you have stories to tell. Make sure you have things to reference on your resume, because there's a lot of stuff on people's resumes. It's all over the place. And you want somebody to say, look at this. I know I put this on the back, but I think it applies really well for what we're doing here. Is this particular certification I got? Is this knowledge I had? Is this previous job I worked with? Is it previous people I worked with? And here's why I'm in this room. And it's great if you can tie back an interview to someone who already works there or somebody else who's already in the interview process. That's the situation I was in, was that they weren't interested in interviewing me. They were interviewing someone else for a salesperson position, someone I've worked with many, many years in my career. And he called me out of the blue and said, hey, I'm going in to talk to these people, or just got out of an interview with these people. And they say they would like to hire me, but they need a systems engineer for me to work with. I'd love it if you applied for this job. We could work together. I'll be the salesperson, you be the SE, and we'll make this happen. And I wasn't even prepared for the call. I wasn't even prepared to talk to this company. But he explained the job to me, and I thought, well, that sounds pretty cool. Let's talk to them. So it went into let's get this job mode. And I flew out to California and sat down and started talking with people. And I will tell you, there were parts of those interviews, because I sat in a room from first thing in the morning till closing time. And they were a startup. They weren't very good at this. They didn't have any lunch ready. There was no breaks for lunch or breaks for food. It was kind of not the best situation from an interviewing perspective, but you sort of figure out, let's just keep going. Let's lead on with this. And I'd flown out, so let's talk about these things. Let's see where this fit. And I got to talk about building my MMAP book. I got to talk about some of the things we talked about today. I was doing some testing with some obfuscation and some utilities I was using and hiding information. And we talked about circumventing security that way. And at the time when you're in these interviews, you really don't know who you're talking to. You don't really know their role. You kind of get a title. Oh, yeah, I'm in charge of this and this. I'm in charge of whatever this thing is on their title. But you don't know what that is. Well, then it turns out you were talking to the CEO. You were talking to the person who designed the product. You were talking to the person in charge of support and being able to answer questions for the SEs in the field. You were talking to the key people in these companies. You'd better be ready when you walk in that building to have a conversation with any of them and explain to them why you think you're the best person for this role. As it turns out, and you can learn from my mistakes, they didn't think I was a good fit. And they really did not want to hire me. They were going to go to another direction. They were going to go with someone else for that particular role. But the person who was the salesperson who originally called me, he got involved and said, no, you got to hire James. You got to put him in this role. Trust me, it's going to go well. I know him better than you know him. It's going to go well. You probably had in the afternoon. By the way, you guys didn't even serve him lunch. He was doing great for someone who had no food for hours. And they go, oh, okay. Well, let's bring him back in and do another meeting. And we did. I went back in. This time I met them in Atlanta, which is much closer to me. And we had another conversation about, well, here's what I think this job would be, and got to go really deep into some of these things. So I was able to redirect with some help and ultimately talk to the SE manager, who ultimately decided to hire me. And it's the best job I ever had. That whole thing was the job I almost never got, turned out to be the best job of my career. So that's why I tell people you have to be prepared and have these stories and have these comparisons and have this ready to go. And that's why your cover letter is so important. That was a long answer for someone who asked, should I have a cover letter? That's why you're here. You're stuck with me at that point. We'll just keep going down that road. And I sure did. And that's why you have to go past the point of being, I am a people person. I I'm good at solving problems. You need more than that. And hopefully before going into this meeting, this interview, you've already set up some software. If this is a company that has software or hardware, I hope you've got some time working on it. So you can tell them, oh, and I set up your system last week. It's running in my lab right now. Here's what I found interesting about this. And you can tell them. Those are great things to do. It's remarkable how many times someone walked into an interview with me. I'm the hiring manager, and I would say, well, tell me about the skills that you bring to the table that would apply to our products and our services. And they just didn't know what we did. They had not even gone to the website. They didn't even know the product names. Oh, what do you guys do? I don't know. Well, I'm a people person. Well, I'm good at solving problems. Okay, but what about the problems with what type of problems do you think would come up with our products? I'm not sure, but then they redirect. One of the best interviews I ever had. They came in. This was early on in the years of websites. If you go back in the day and you look at Apple's website, Microsoft's website, Cisco's website, these were awful websites. They were ugly. They were unattractive, but that's the best we had at the time. Browsers were not very advanced. We didn't have JavaScript. We didn't have a lot of flexibility. HTML was very basic. But I had someone come in with printed copies of the product pages, and they had highlighted and circled things and said, I was interested in this. I thought this was interesting when I read it on your spec sheet, that blah, 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 blah. Because I've worked with this before and it doesn't do that. Yours does. I found that interesting. And we got to have a conversation. Somebody really took the time to understand the entire product line and be able to walk into the interview. That's strong. Not everybody does the legwork. Not everybody gets put into the keep pile because they just didn't do the extra work. And sometimes simply doing a cover letter can be the difference when you're trying to get into the keep pile. I will say for that job that I got, that last job where they ended up hiring me, and I didn't think they really wanted to, but they did, and it turns out it all worked out. They were happy later on that they did. I think with that job, I don't believe I did a cover letter. I don't think I put a cover letter in there. So I might have missed an opportunity to close the deal early because I didn't do the work. So learn from my mistakes. Learn from someone who's gone through that, and it was up in the air. It fortunately came my way, and fortunately, they went ahead and hired me. But it could have gone completely the other direction. And as it turns out, the job I was in was not where I wanted to stay anyway. It all worked out. It was really the best perfect fit for me at that time. And it's remarkable any of it happened. And from there, the stories. Can you imagine walking around with a next generation firewall before there was such a thing, before people put these on their networks? Imagine plugging into a corporate network and instantly seeing all the malware, all the URLs people were visiting, all of the applications in use, just instantly, and being able to see that. The stories I have of what I saw and the things I cannot unsee are there on these devices. It was an amazing role. It was an exciting, interesting, remarkable job every day that you'd only get if you were in IT. You would only get if you were in this particular line of work. You don't get that being a doctor, being a dentist, being a lawyer. It just doesn't work that way. So a lot of fun. And I got to travel amazing places and talk to amazing people and learn amazing things. And it was a great time. Highly, highly recommend that type of thing. When you're making a transition, and this sort of brought up another question of in the chat room where someone says, I'm making the switch from human services to cybersecurity. And this is an interesting one because there's a lot of people that want to move into IT, but they may have started in another role doing another thing. Maybe they're in another vertical market. Maybe they're in manufacturing. Maybe they work in a hospital. Maybe they are in a services role. Maybe they do, maybe they're a police officer. Maybe they could do tons of different things, but they're not in IT. And they want to move into IT. There is a transition that has to take place because normally you've been working in this other job for a while. You kind of worked your way up. With IT, you kind of have to start at the beginning again. So you kind of start down at the help desk, unless maybe you know someone who works there already or someone who's worked with you who said, let's not put you in a help desk. Let's move you up to this level because I think you can handle it. Or they might say, nope, you got to work in the help desk first. Do that for 6 months. Then we'll move you to workstation team, networking team, server team, cloud team, whatever it happens to be. That's usually how it works. So sometimes you do have to start back at the bottom again. So it's good if you can have some savings that can get you through that 6 months that will eventually propel you up. And a lot of times it's disappointing, but some people who start working down at a help desk or they look at a help desk role, they're currently working in manufacturing, they're working in a hospital, they're doing something else, and they're making a certain amount of money. And they look at a help desk job and say, well, I'm making a lot less money by taking that help desk job. There's no way I'm going to move into IT. That's what I want to do. But look at that. Look at the difference. The thing you have to remember about IT is the upward mobility in IT is ridiculous. The upward mobility is you can move so fast up through the levels in IT to positions with skills that are difficult to find, and therefore those jobs pay very well. So although you may be taking a bit of a money hit to start in IT, if you apply yourself, you can very quickly start moving up through the ranks and move up very quickly. And indeed, move up, just keep moving up. You don't stop in IT. That's another thing I think that's unique in information technology that's very different than working in healthcare and manufacturing and transportation and the other types of markets, is you just keep moving up. At any point, if you wanted to go to the next level, you wanted to level up in IT, which includes more knowledge, more money, more flexibility, more benefits, you just learn more skills. So it's really on you. You can keep moving up and moving up as long as you want to keep moving up and moving up. And it's remarkable how fast this happens. It happens really, really fast. But as I mentioned, and they're even saying it in the chat room, but you have to apply yourself. You don't just get in a help desk. You're like, okay, all done. We're coasting now. Got the help desk job. No, you're just getting started. This is sort of like leveling up a character in an MMO. And you're finally hit max level, and you're like, okay, I beat the game. And everybody at that level says, oh no, we're just getting started. We are just starting the process. A help desk is just the start. What's great about it is just the movement, just going up. And I find it very interesting when you're learning these things and putting these really technical skills and troubleshooting skills in your brain, that you're able to use these throughout your career. The things I learned on a corporate help desk just a mere years ago, I'm still using in my career, because the way an operating system works, the way storage drives work, the way hardware operates, the way networks operate, the same protocols running across our network today, in many cases, very same protocols I was using back in the day. So these are skills you will just keep learning and just keep building. Now, are there things back in the day that I'm not using anymore? There absolutely is. I used to maintain the token ring frequently asked questions file on Usenet. Okay, how many people need access to token ring frequently asked questions these days? So there are things you will have to, that will drop off as technology changes. You don't have a lot of people clamoring for an employee who understands asynchronous transfer mode or ATM. But in the day, that was a popular protocol, popular topology we were installing. Now you just don't see it. It didn't work the way we expected it to work, and therefore did not get implemented the way we expected to get implemented. And the reality is we just made gig Ethernet, and then it all went away. Ethernet just kills everything. Whenever you think another technology is going to do better on the network, they just make Ethernet go faster, and it just kills everything else. Thank you, Cisco. That's the way it works. It just happens every time, it seems. So I would tell people, just get in the role and work your way up. You will be surprised how much money you're going to be making in let's just say 3 years. In 3 years, you could double your salary or more just by applying yourself, moving up, networking, learning, going to trade shows, finding people in the industry, finding things that interest you, and learning about them. Can't do that in a lot of places. If you were studying to be a nurse, you become an RN, there's some upward mobility from there, an ARNP and other things that you could be, but eventually you hit a limit. If for someone with a 4-year nursing degree, this is what you can do and you hit the limit. With IT, there's no limits. There are no formal blocks that you hit. There's no top of the ceiling you have to hit. So I think you really do have to think about a long term with IT. You have to really be in the game for a long period of time, because that's really going to be the key. And I think it's really important. Other questions in the chat room. There's quite a few. Let me kind of break down. And since we're sort of talking about this, could you please guide what makes one the best security engineer? Knowledge, tools, technologies, things to keep an eye on. Well, I'll give you my perspective. As someone who was not technically on a corporate IT security team, but I would go in and talk with hundreds of corporate IT security teams. As a systems engineer who was in really representing a particular series or line of products, I had to be the expert on that product. And for a lot of people that are working in corporate IT, you're sort of you're knowledgeable in a lot of different technologies across the board. When you're working as a systems engineer for a manufacturer, you have to know 100% or close to it, 99% of what this product does. And then sort of you have to learn everything else on sort of the outside of that. So I still needed to know about networking and operating systems and Windows and integrations and Active Directory and LDAP and all the things that come with that. But you also have to be extremely knowledgeable on that one series of products that your company represents. So I would say if you want to be a good systems engineer, you have to have at least the idea of understanding how this product works at a very detailed level and understanding they're going to be going through a lot of training for that particular product. I think it also, at least on the engineering side, and this kind of applies to IT in general, it also helps a lot if you're very good at communication. And this is where you can really differentiate yourself in the industry, is your ability to communicate. I think where there have been differences in the people I've watched succeed in IT through the years, they've been able to take very complicated, very involved topics and turn them into something that anybody could understand or that you could at least have a conversation about. Now, sometimes you also have to have that detailed conversation. You get in a room with another SE and you're having detailed conversations in almost a different language. But for the most part, having the ability to switch back and forth, having the ability to talk to management, to talk to the CEO, or to talk to the engineer, all with a differing level of skills and knowledge across all of them, is a very valuable skill. Being able to present in front of people is a very valuable skill. There's always that statistic they bring up that the 9 out of 10 folks, or whatever the crazy number is, 9 out of 10 folks are afraid of public speaking above anything else. The thing they are most afraid of in the world is public speaking. There's a group of people, whatever that number is, that is their number one fear. So it could be said that at a funeral, that they would much rather be the person in the casket than the person who's talking at the funeral. That's the level of fear they have about public speaking. I think that's probably normal for everybody. Public speaking is not something that just comes automatically to people. You see people all the time speaking publicly. I guess this is a type of public speaking, but you see people talking all the time, and they're great. Watch these TED Talks. These folks are solid. They are so good at speaking. They've memorized everything with their presentation. They've probably done this presentation 50, 100, 150 times, and they've got it down perfect. But it took a lot of work to get to that point. It just doesn't come automatically. I've gone to specific training that they gave the systems engineers on how to do presentations that go to the level of where do you put your hands when you're talking? Do you, not sure what, and it's interesting that that's where you start. How do you stand in front of a group? And it's interesting to see people who have gone through this training where their arms are at their side and they're standing up straight. There's other people that will clasp their hands on the front, or they'll put their hands in the back, and I don't know what they're hiding. They're trying to pick. They're playing basketball, and they're setting a pick. I don't know why, but they seem like somebody's coming after them. But if you relax, put your hands at your side, it doesn't seem natural. And so they had to video us, make a recording of us doing this presentation, or just standing there with their hands at their side. And they said, well, how's that feel? And everybody go, feels kind of funny just to stand up here with our hands at our side. Well, if you look at it, though, you look perfectly normal. You look very relaxed. You look fine. And so when I'm standing on stage, you will always see me with my hands at my side, because it's sort of training over time kind of taught us that, okay, that's how you should stand when you're speaking in front of people. That's just one of the many, many things you have to learn to be able to have those skills. Those are very valuable skills for a systems engineer, whether you're in front of just a small group of people in a conference room or whether you're speaking to thousands of people at a trade show, which I have done. I used to have a job where all I did was travel from trade show to trade show, location to location, customer to customer around the world and just talk to people. That was my job. I was a marketing manager, director of marketing. And that's what we would do. Technical marketing was the actual job role. So I was kind of the universal translator between technical products and showing people the value of those products. I think that's a good place to go. Turns out it paid pretty well too. So that's a great way to have some additional skills that can really differentiate you from just being a smart technical engineer to really being a systems engineer who can really succeed and exceed at the jobs that they do. That's a lot of fun too. Being able to meet people, have these conversations, travel a lot of places. I had no idea that my career would allow me to do that. So I got to travel to Australia and London and Germany and Canada and the wilds of Canada and all over the world and Japan and Korea, and just talk to people about technology. How fun is that? It's a lot of fun. And those jobs are out there. So figure out what you'd like to do. Figure out what that particular role would require of you and go do that. Because the jobs are out there. You just have to find them and be ready with the skills they need to be able to get into that job. And I highly recommend it. Had a great time traveling around and seeing the world and talking tech. And it's not the only job like that. There are plenty of jobs out there that give you a chance to do that. So I would recommend you have a look at those as well. It's a lot of fun. We often think of technology as I'm at a keyboard, I'm typing, there's stuff on a screen. Maybe people think programming. That's my family. They don't know what I do. They think, oh, are you doing programming? Are you doing coding? Because coding's great. Everyone should learn how to code. They've been told everyone should learn how to code. And of course I tell them, no, not everyone should learn how to code. What a bad idea. We should definitely not have everybody learning how to code. The people that do know how to code are not that great now. So let's not bring everybody else into it. It's hard enough trying to figure it out and really finding the good people. So let's just focus on technology without putting people in boxes right now. We'll figure out, maybe there are people that are great at coding. We'll have them do the coding. There's other people that are good at maintaining database servers. There are other people that are really good at maintaining a data center. There's other people that are really good at Linux. You have to figure out what you're good at and go with those. I think so. Yeah, I've been in some meetings where I'm pretty sure I talked for 30 minutes and I don't think anybody understood what I was saying. Some of these countries, they were very polite. They nodded. They were very nice. But I'm pretty sure there was a presentation I did in Belgium that they have no idea what I said. They just weren't sure. The jokes never work in a foreign country. They just don't. So you got a temptation. Stick to the facts. Otherwise, you're just confusing everybody. That's my tip for you. If you are in a room full of people who speak Flemish, that's what you should do. I'm not sure it worked out, but I was there. I got to see it. So it's one of those situations. Well, that kind of brings us to, we're like an hour and a half into the after show. We did a little bit of overtime for you there, but I kind of get on those rolls every once in a while. And it kind of brings us to the end of another Security Plus study group. We got through quite a bit of Security Plus questions. I feel like you were a little too smart for me this month. Wait till next month. I'm going to come up with some other questions. We're gonna stump all of you next month. I think not intentionally. I just need to make sure that not everybody knows the answer to every question. We'll get those. We'll figure it out as we go. Remember, if you want to know when the next event is going to be, you can always visit the events calendar. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/calendar to find out when the next event is going to be. We've always got something going on. And when we're not here live, we'd love for you to join us over on Discord. You can find us at ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. We're always there. It's always on my phone. I'm always hearing the noise, even when it's not making the noise. That's kind of how Discord works. We'd love to have you there as well. Thanks for joining us and spending your time out of your day to answer questions, to follow us in the chat room, to talk with everybody else here. We love doing it. We love that you're here to enjoy that with us. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Security Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.